Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the X Button, Season 4, Episode 6. I'm your host, Alejandro, and with me, returning for his first appearance in 2024, the semi-regular Batman, aka he'll always rescue me when I need like a co-host when my other one's missing.
Hey everyone, it's Sebastion Mauldin from the Single Player Experience Podcast. Thank you so much, Alejandro, for having me back.
Yeah, I'm excited to finally see, especially for this year, because we got to meet each other like in person over the holiday break, and that was cool to be like. It's so funny. I met you in person before I met Paul. I still have
That's
not.
crazy.
Yeah, I've been like podcasting with Paul for like almost 4 years. I've never met him like in person, and I've done so much with him. It's so funny, the internet era we live in, where it's like you get to meet more people this way instead of kind of like the real life. But yeah, I got to see him in Dallas. He took me to the 54th Street Tavern or whatever that thing is called. That burger was like delicious.
Good, wasn't it?
Yeah. So it was good because remember I wasn't hungry when initially we had to wait until like the happy hour, and they serve it, and in like 2 seconds I like garbled it like Squidward in that burger episode of SpongeBob, if you remember that one. But how's life been?
It's been crazy. So, fun fact: I've actually never seen a whole episode of SpongeBob before.
Really?
Never seen a whole episode before. It's like, like I grew up around the age of SpongeBob and the era of SpongeBob, but like I never really sat down and watched it. During that time, I was like, and still to this day, I'm pretty obsessed. But like, I was heavily into anime, so it was more like. Yeah. Instead of after school watching SpongeBob, I was watching like Dragon Ball Z, Yu Yu Hakusho,
Digimon,
kind of shows.
Something like that.
Every once in a while, Digimon. But yeah, it was like Teaching Muyo and all those type of shows.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so I never really sat down and watched SpongeBob, but my little sister was heavy into it.
Yeah, but you probably already seen the memes. Like the memes are like so many people know SpongeBob now because of the memes. They're so easily memeable. Like so everything about it. It's like I haven't watched SpongeBob episodes in years, but so many of those like meme moments are like live rent free in my mind, and I love referencing them whenever we troll in chats. But glad to have you here. It's been today was a very how can I say very eventful day for one console brand that they made their whole fans wait 2 weeks for some answers about the future of their business that seem really scary. We're definitely gonna talk about that later, but before we get to that, we're gonna talk about the games we're playing. But as a reminder that this is the X Bottom Podcast, our gaming podcast that posts every Fridays from 10 a.m. onwards, God willing, available on the YouTube channel Escape Gaming, as well as most audio services around the world, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the like. You can find links in the RSS feed at tinyurl.com/escapegaming. If you enjoy our show, give us a like and subscribe. And just as a little bit of housekeeping, pretty soon I'm also going to be making an appearance over at Sebastion's show for a single player experience. We're going to do an entire episode all dedicated to Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. That should be like a fun discussion because there's so much to talk about that damn game. But now time to talk about what we have been playing. Sebastion, you're the first guest. I want to hear how's been your experience with Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, aka what are the highest rated games of this year that we missed for our fantasy when we did the fantasy.
Everyone a little inside baseball into our like dynamic here. Like we have a fantasy league, like a video game fantasy league that we're playing, and it has been really fun because we got to draft last week. We didn't do any of the games in January, so we started fresh in February. So we did miss a lot of the pre-release or the intro salvo of 2024, but we hit it hard in February. But
basically all the guaranteed 85s to 90s that suddenly dropped in this early year, like we all missed it. So it's gonna be more. It made for a more interesting fantasy because it's like if we had started right in January, a lot of people that if they had gotten those games, they would pretty much be guaranteed winners because it was rare to see games reviewed this high and in high quantity like we have gotten this first 5 weeks. But
historically speaking, January is kind of like it's not dump. Yeah, I was about to say a snooze burger month for video games, but like this month just came out of the gate swinging. It's like 2023 just kept continuing. It's like part 2 of all of the greatest year of video games of all time. So it's been a wild one, but I'm a little behind if I'm being honest, because like sure I've been playing Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, but I haven't really, and I played the little of Persona 3, but I haven't really played a whole lot of AAA games this year, man. I think it's mostly been it's been either on the indie side or it's also like been those things to where like a Dragon is so meaty and so like thick that I'm kind of taking my time with
Oh
it.
yeah, you're gonna get 100 hours out of the bad boy, from what I hear from the people who are currently playing it.
I'm not surprised because the first one I think I rolled credits around 120, like on the first one. So I'm like, and I love it. I love Ichiban. I love the crew. I'm like, this is kind of like what I play JRPGs for, is to and RPGs like this is to get like really excited about falling in love with like these merry band of characters. So I'm loving every minute of it. I do think like I do hear some critiques that it is more of the same, and I do see that kind of like thing that I do kind of feel that a little bit, but I also think there's so many more intricate levels of details that they put into this game that make it worthy of being its own sequel.
The combat's different from the first one. I know that because I did play the Yakuza 7 like a dragon briefly, and it's like, from what I see of 8, you can even move. Like, there's a little bit more movement to the turn base than before. It was more like a static thing, or like a traditional turn-based combat. So it's like, even the little things and all the mini games that they've added for Infinite Wealth, which is nuts. Like Pokemon and Animal Crossing, from things that I've been seeing, it's like they really went for broke with how much they packed into that thing.
Yeah, the first game had had a wealth of mini games, but not quite to this level. Like the first game had karting, which was very reminiscent of, like, I would say either Mario Kart meets Crash Bandicoot karting. Like it did have that, and it did have like a business wealth mini game that was actually one of my favorite parts of the first game. But like, yeah, like you were saying, there's so many cool mini games to this one. There's the action is more, I guess you could say, fluid and also more dynamic, and this is the way you can move your characters. So it's been fun. It's really been a really good time. And honestly, this is like, even though I haven't quite, I think I was telling you about this in our chats, I haven't quite felt that super AAA game yet this year. It's been a fun time nevertheless. I'm having fun playing video games right now in 2024.
I would say, like for JRPG fans, I cannot imagine a better time than this.
Oh yeah,
there's such a wealth of high quality, varied release. Is like I recently beat Grand Blue Fantasy. I reviewed it. You can go read my review over at seasongaming.com. Like, for fans that want like a button mash JRPG, they have that option. If they want like the Persona style, like huge time sink, they got Persona 3 Reloaded, which was highly beloved. Obviously, Yakuza Like a Dragon, which a lot of people are considering probably the best one they've ever done. They got the most anticipated game of the year, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, that action / turn-based hybrid system that they got going there. So it's like, there you get your options. You get it like you got all your options, and all looking as high quality as that genre has seen like in so many years, and also very successful. It's wild that all 3 of the already released JRPGs have sold 1 million.
Yeah,
and they didn't cannibalize each other. That's wild.
And just think, like, Square puts out like 10 of these a year, so I'm like, JRPGs are gonna be like feasting all throughout this year as well.
Yeah, Metaphor's coming soon. Ayuden Chronicles is coming soon. Yeah, like Visions of Mana is coming soon. It's like, if last year was horror, this year it's like the JRPG is like that's the genre of this year. So
I'm happy for that. And then you also, like, I didn't play it, but like, I know some people really enjoy Tekken and such like that.
Ooh, no, Tekken's excellent. It's like Tekken, I would dare say it's the like from the run from Street Fighter to here, Tekken 8's the best one. The best fighting game out of all of them. Which says a lot, because Street Fighter 6 was so good. The story mode of Mortal Kombat 1 was good. Everything else about that game, not so much. There was the Grand Blue Fantasy versus Rising fighting game from December also. That was like a surprise for the people that noticed that another fighting game came out like in the middle of December. So it's like a lot of genres are being like kind of like well served. The only one that hasn't been well served is first person shooter. It's still that's still kind of like the genre that's still kind of weirdly being underserved. Like
and Avium might be the best first person shooter that we've gotten recently.
Yeah, and poor thing, that studio is like basically gone. They say this still exists. Yeah, we're definitely gonna read a headline about that later. But what else have you been playing besides Infinite Wealth? Unless you have more to say.
No, I think that's pretty
Mhm.
much it. If it like my pitch for everyone listening is if you haven't played if you haven't played Infinite Wealth, but you really loved like a dragon, I definitely say like it's a worthwhile sequel. Just go ahead and dive into it. But my next game that I want to put on people's radar is a game that hasn't come out yet.
Mhm.
It's probably my highlight from Steam Next Fest because I've
Yeah,
been playing a wealth like a well variety of Steam Next Fest demos and
yeah. And for the uninitiated, Sebastian, could you explain
Mhm.
to the listeners what Steam Next Fest is?
Okay. So you know how AAA people get excited about like demos whenever
Hmm.
Final Fantasy 7 gets announced for a
Yeah.
demo or like all those kind of stuff. Steam Next Fest is like for indie lovers is like a festival that they have on Steam where like you get to play like a huge variety of demos like from all sorts of indie games usually coming out this calendar year. Some of them, do like, get pushed into next year and such like that, or some of them don't have a release date yet. But a wide variety of those do have a release date for this year. And one of them that I want to really shout out is this game called Realm of Ink. It is a game that I'm just gonna call a spade a spade. It's a Hades clone. It looks exactly
Okay.
like it plays exactly like Hades, where you clear out a room, and at the end of your room, you basically get to choose a upgrade tree, and like you go to the next room, and it's a whole different variety of enemies that you're taking down. But the key thing is, it plays exactly like Hades, except it
Uh-huh.
has a Chinese mythology to it. So I'm like, instead of you playing as, like instead of you trying to escape hell and such, you're playing as a group of characters that are basically trying to better themselves and get power ups and such like that as they're trying to pursue a fox demon. So you have a swordsman red, and her destiny is basically that she is within this realm of a book, and that's where the ink kind of plays in. But like she gets all these cool power ups that she gets from like the Chinese mythology and different systems and such like that. But it is so cool how this art style like it looks like a picture book, but it also has
Mhm.
that Hades gameplay because everything about this is Hades. Like the way the enemies move, very much like Hades. The way like your attacks, a lot of it is reminiscent of Hades. But so I'm like, if that is one of your favorite roguelikes, one of your favorite indie games, and you're missing that in your life, definitely go play this game because this will give you all those good feels.
I'm looking at some of the screenshots. It's so Hades. It's like
It is.
it's so
It really
blatant.
is.
But
It
I'll
is.
take it. I'll take it. Hades was awesome. Was like
Yeah.
my favorite game of in 2020. So
Sometimes I think like we go too far in trying to be original, that sometimes like original games don't necessarily come across in the best light,
yeah,
like
but
it's like
building upon already and
yeah,
other ideas, kind of like that. That's like usually how it goes. It's like
yeah, for sure.
something takes like the inspiration. Like for example, think about like OG God of War back in like the
Hmm.
Greek era. It's like the inspiration of those games was Devil May Cry.
Yeah.
They took like the foundation of something else and then they built upon it. That's kind of where that's kind of where gaming has always been. With kind of like the iteration of someone did an original idea and then someone makes that idea even better. Not saying Realm of Ink is gonna do the Hades better, but
No,
I'm
of
glad that
course.
it's actually really cool. I'm kind of like flipping through the screenshots that in the IGN preview by Ryan McCaffrey. I'm like, this art style looks really appealing to me. It's kind of like it's because the Hades art style was like more cell shaded. This feels more like
Hmm.
painterly, kind of. So it's like there's a
It
similarity,
is.
but there's like
It's like
something
water
different.
paint.
Uh huh.
Yeah, it's like water paint. And let me be clear here. This might not like I played the demo. I played like probably like 10 hours of this game. I
Already,
have
wow! You could like get at 10 hours out of a demo.
Yeah,
Damn.
because like the demo had like four playable characters in it, so you got to test out to see how well each four characters work and how they play differently and such like that. So like in Hades, you're playing as one central protagonist, and this one you're playing as different protagonists that have different combat styles. So one of them could be the sword person, one of them could be the shield, one of them could be the spear, and so on and so forth. But this game, it feels like a copy and paste of Hades, but it has its own original concepts. Like it has a pet system in this game to where like your pet does different augments you in different ways, or it might be an attack pet. And then like it also has different features to where maybe instead of like cooldowns being reduced or stuff like that, you can flip cooldown effects on your enemies. So I'm like they have added cooldowns after they do a single attack. So an enemy might attack you like 10 times in the span of like 30 seconds only can attack you one time in 30 seconds. So I'm like, there's so many different power-ups that they thought of as like, hey, Hades did this, but we're going to do the same thing in a different way. That this game doesn't necessarily have to be Hades, but it could be Dark Bayonetta's like what Bayonetta and Darkstarter was to God of War, like OG God of War, you know, like it could be that. And I think this game is spectacular. I played this on the Steam Deck and it runs beautifully, it looks good, and it scratches that itch because I want more Hades.
Yeah, I got into a point, especially right now, because I grabbed my brother's computer, the one that he built on his Warzone kind of like competitions, because he went to college and left it, and he was wanting to sell it, but he couldn't find a buyer, and he was like, I don't want to keep this PC kind of like locked in a box and it probably ruining by just not use. So he was like, unbox it and use it until I find a buyer. So I start now delving. I kind of tell you in private, it's like one of my bigger goals this year, especially because definitely it's not gonna be serving me my favorite AAA I like known IPs like it was last year, that it was like all of my known franchises got a big entry last year. It was like I want to go back to like the indie scene at least this year, and I know PC is like one of the areas, and so now I have a PC that theoretically should run this all without problems. So
yeah,
but even though I know this thing, like at least I was reading the IGN article at Realm of Ink, was announced for PC and consoles, so it's like it could jump simultaneously. But yeah, I'll definitely keep an eye on this one because I'm a big Hades fan. I love Hades. I played a lot of Hades in my plane ride from El Salvador to Dallas over this past holiday. I was like, damn, why is this so good? It's like, this is such a perfect, there's such a perfect handle game. So I believe why you played it a lot in the Steam Deck. So anything else from the Steam Fest that you want to like promote, or do you play anything else?
Just for people who liked games like what is the cooking game, Overcooked. And for people who like the games like Overcooked, there's a game that's come out recently called Speed Crew. This game was a part of Steam Next Fest, I think, a while back. But like Speed Crew's come out, it's very much like Overcooked, but it's about you being a race car team, and you're trying to like get your team out as fast as possible. So like when a car actually like beating down like the hood, the grill, and such a thing, you're trying to fix these cars so they can go right back into the action as quickly as possible. And this game's, if you love Overcooked and you want like you can do this solo, or if you want like up to 4 people around you, and y'all can have like zany fun and do it in a car setting to where like, hey, you should be changing this tire out, you should be cranking up this car with the jack and such like that. If you like Overcooked and you want something a little different, check this one out. Speed Crew is right up your alley. Those are the 2 games I think I would definitely tell like PC people and people who look for indie games on consoles to definitely keep their eyes out on.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So yeah. Then anything else for you, Sebastion? Let's see. What is this thing about the RG35 retro game console?
Have you heard of this?
I think I've heard. Is it kind of like a GBA style, like kind of like a yeah? So it's like, so you have it, man, because I saw it in the Sacred Symbols guys. 2 of them, Dustin and Chris, have it. Really? Yeah, and they showed it. It's like they say that it like in pixel perfect form recreates the old Game Boy Color style of things. Do you have it there with you?
No, not okay. It's upstairs, but like but yeah, it like, so my version that it came with about like for people who don't know, this is very much an emulation machine. Like this is very much, it supports cheat code functions. You can play added music, you can do automatic because it has like a hardcore memory system there. I'm like, you have automatic game progress savings and such like that. You can add in games that you want to run emulators for and such like that. But you can do so many different styles of games. That's not just Game Boy Color, because mine has 5,000 games on it, like 5,000 at the time. At
Damn.
the time of this recording. But like, this is for people who want to play like retro style games from everywhere. Like, I would say anything up to the GameCube era, this will safely play really well and in high quality.
And still, to my mind, like, the GameCube is still my favorite Nintendo console. Still,
is it really?
It's still to this day, even with the Switch. Like, it's still like it was kind of like a formative experience for me, like the best era for me at the age that I was in, and the kind of games that they were getting. That's where Metroid Prime came from. So obviously, like, you were not as impressed experiencing Metroid Prime for the first time now.
No.
Think about, like, me experiencing that kind of game, the birth of the 3D Metroidvania genre in a GameCube at a time where Nintendo was still kind of like in the same... They were like battling the same lane as PlayStation and Xbox and newcomer Xbox. So that was kind of like what was cool about the GameCube. Even though the GameCube was the worst selling of those three, it was still kind of like Nintendo at its most traditional, trying to like see what they could do before they pivoted. So that's why, like, I love, and I'm still waiting for so many GameCube games to get ported over to the Switch.
What's it missing still that you want?
The two Zelda games, Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, are like the only ones, because everything else is on the Switch. And obviously, I have gone ahead and said fuck it and downloaded it in the Dolphin emulator. So be like, now if I want them, I don't have to plug in my Wii. But it's still, I would be the sucker that if they sell them on Switch, I will get it just to have everything on one system. So
is that so? Those games at the time that they came out with were 30 FPS, right?
Yes. So
Okay.
so I know through emulation they can be like bumped up.
Yeah. Do you think if Nintendo came out with those games today, they'd still be 30 FPS, or do you think like it'd be 60? I'm like,
I feel like, for example, like Skyward Sword, when they ported it up, the Wii version was 30. They made that 60. So depends on how they ported, because when those were in the Wii U, they were just 30, but they bumped the resolution to 1080p. So, and that was for the Wii U for Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. So
okay, would either one of those be a good entry point into the Zelda franchise?
I would say,
not really?
I would say like a lot of Zelda games are always like good entry points. I would say Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, probably like you may want to like get familiarized with the mechanics in Breath of the Wild to kind of just jump into Tears of the Kingdom, because they added like the extra complexity of that one. But at least traditional Zelda games like Wind Waker and Twilight Princess are my favorite. I would say like Twilight Princess has aged better, because Wind Waker has a very exhausting fetch quest at the end of that game, because that was a game that got put into market kind of like because Nintendo needed exclusive, they needed like big games, so they needed to rush for the first year. So kind of like whatever they had planned for like the final 2 dungeons that they were planning for that game, it got exchanged for like a fetch quest where you have to explore the entire world looking for like some specific things that makes replaying that game kind of a chore. They ease that up in the Wii U version of like, you can make this much quicker, but it's like it makes replaying that game kind of like, it's like you're having an awesome time going through like probably one of the better told Zelda stories, or like in Nintendo style storytelling. Obviously, you know what that is. So but it was kind of like they at least it had like some cool like story moments, especially for people that although the Zelda franchise is not like a linear everything builds together, it's like everything is kind of referenced in a way that it's both standalone, but it's kind of like, I remember it's like this race of people, I remember it from like the SNES game, things like that. So, but I would say like a standalone things like Wind Waker and Twilight Princess are like good games to play from that franchise. I still prefer that. I love Tears of the Kingdom, especially compared to Breath of the Wild, that I do not like. I've said it many times in your show that I think Breath of the Wild is the most overrated game ever, but I still like love old school, the old school, more linear Metroidvania style. That's what's so funny. Zelda and Metroid are so similar in so many, like they share the same kind of like design philosophy of exploration and itemization that keeps like unlocking the world around you. So, and a lot of people copy that formula too. So, but those are the two games, the two last Nintendo games that are coming in that makes me be like, okay, I have everything that I love from the GameCube here. Paper Mario Thousand Year Door was also one of my favorite GameCube games. That already is coming for this year. So,
okay, I think I drafted that one.
Oh yeah, you did. So I was like, that's gonna be an easy one because that's a really beloved Paper Mario game. It's still to me the best Paper Mario game. So
Never played one, man. If I'm being honest.
yeah, it's like I like them because it's like they're funny. It has like Nintendo is not much about the story. The story in the Paper Mario games, at least, are funny. They have fun dialogue, so it's like they're just like a hilarity to them that's a little bit more playful and more in the joke than you usually would expect from Mario. Even the Super Mario RPG game that came out recently, the one from November. I was playing recently. It's like, oh yeah, like a lot of the humor of Paper Mario kind of like was birthed in that Super Mario RPG. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, but again, like you gotta love Nintendo, and we know how you feel about them. But yeah, as for my game, Sebastion, so you were in single player land. I've been like kind of sorting like in the live service area here because I'm waiting for my next big single player game in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which is my next review over at Season Gaming. So I've been playing Helldivers 2. This one, initially I was like, I bet this is gonna be like a fun time waster. At least like I enjoyed the original Helldivers top down like twin stick shooter for 2015. Okay, they're making it more like an over the shoulder thing. So it's like maybe look more generic in comparison. And I played it, and what a blast this game has been. That have you seen the videos that people are posting about this thing?
Yeah,
My God,
like,
yeah, I know it's not your time, but have you seen like the hilarity of like people playing this game? It's been wild. Like just like so like Paul retweeted this is like a session in this game feels like you're playing as the clones in the 2003 Clone Wars Cartoon Network show. Where you're like the clones like in massive like pandemonium battles where they're like batting battle droids and all that. There's like a robot faction in this game that when you're in, a lot of people are like, man, this feels like you're in the Vietnam War, but it's like with robots. And it's just like there's just a level of chaos that can happen when you're playing either by yourself or with like a team and trying to fend off all these different waves of enemies that just keep overwhelming you. Then you have so many tools of like I'm gonna call in an orbital strike, maybe like I'm gonna call in some artillery, like airplanes, to just kind of like gun down some things, and then sometimes like in the desperation of you throwing those things, you can get killed yourself, or you kill your partners or player characters because there's friendly fire in this game, and there's just like a level of dynamism in this game that even as how I've been playing, the way I've seen a lot of people play, I understand now why this game has been growing like it is going. Obviously, we're talking about Pal World, kind of like how that really took the world by storm early this year. Everyone is talking about Helldivers too, and it's so funny. It's kind of like this is also the first simultaneous PS5 and PC launch, and kind of like people are noticing how like at least in the PC side and the Steam tracks, the numbers of that game keep growing and growing and growing. It grows so much that the servers collapse on themselves because Arrowhead, the developer, put us like, we were not expecting a lot of people, a lot of you guys to care. Like, we gotta like upgrade the server stuff. It's like, and now they're even talking about like beefing up their development team to kind of like being able to provide more content. It's like they really threw this game out, kind of like okay, this is what the game is. Let's see how it goes. And a lot of people are really, really taken into it. It's like, it's not the most technically proficient game, like, that you probably, like, if you compare Helldivers 2 just visually to everything else that's like on Sony, or at least the Sony Interactive Entertainment, like, logo that they have published and all that, this is definitely kind of like in the more double A sense, but it really...
Let me ask you some questions if you don't mind.
Yes. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. So the logo does appear, like Sony logo does appear when you
it was published by them. So
okay, making sure. Okay, so do you think this game, like, this is obviously a very fun game, a lot of people are gravitating to it. My question for you is, as a person who's played this game, like, do you think like this game would have taken off or on its own merits, or do you think it's mostly due to the fact that it got state of play and a whole bunch of different kinds of advertisements that Sony put into it?
I would even dare that they barely promoted this at all, if I'm perfectly honest. Like, the first time they promoted this was at the showcase last year. It was one of their first games. Since then, the last time that they promoted was kind of like very briefly a very brief commercial at the last state of play. So it's like they had been like downplaying a lot of this game, even to the point where Foam Stars, a game that they launched on PS Plus that came like 2 days before, a lot of people were like, why are you launching Foam Stars 2 days before Helldivers 2? It's like, are you scared? Like, are you like cannibalizing it? So it's like, I feel like a lot of the why this game has taken off has been by its own merits, because it has caught a lot of people by surprise. Because a lot of people had been like, we were not expecting this game to be this good. That has been that was kind of like where a lot of people have where the word of mouth has been. I know, like, just anecdotally, a guy from my Destiny clan bought a PS5 for this game. Because like the videos he was seeing on TikTok of like the fighting the aliens, the dropships coming in, and like the Starship Troopers kind of humor, him being like, I grew up with Starship Troopers. It's like, it's all about like the humor is like so copied from that from that movie, For Democracy, like all this like weird political mumbo jumbo that the soldiers are like spouting as they're kind of like just like ravaging these aliens and all that. It's like they're kind of appealing kind of like that B movie style nostalgia that I feel like that, combined with how cheap it is to kind of get in, because it's not free to play. This is a $40 game, at least just for kind of like an entrance. It's like they kind of hit what we have been talking, kind of like that middle spot, where if this had been $70, no way in hell this takes off. Like, no way in hell. It's like they knew what they had, they pressed it appropriately, they nailed kind of like a gameplay loop that's like so dynamic, and you know kind of how like any game that provides kind of like dynamic style of gameplay that a lot of people can use the tools that they're giving to them in a way that they can feel like creative and very authored to their experience. In like, gosh, it was like we were being overwhelmed by this like massive alien, and I just called in a dropship because one of my friends came down, and I was trying to like respawn him, and him in his respawn fell into the alien and killed the alien, and we defeated the alien. Or things like there's been like so many kind of like those kind of stories that a lot of people are telling you the wild experience they're having with this game, and that's just the game itself. Like, to the point where even among the server stability that grew because of this game massive popularity, is like it still keeps getting more and more popular, to the point where even though it's not at Pal World's insane like numbers that it was having, it's like it has a level of buzz that's very similar to the point that I'm like, I had not seen, like, let me put it like this, like, it's rare for a Sony game to have this kind of buzz that's not like everyone nudging at their nose at their third person cinematic stuff. It's so wild for them to see, like, because obviously a lot of people are being like, yeah, Sony just makes the same kind of game, and those games are really good. But it's like a lot of people are like, holy crap, we didn't know that a game like this could come out of them, considering what they have been specializing over the past decade, and that the simultaneous release of this game on PC also, kind of like being like, this feels kind of like if Sony wanted like a test bed of like their live service strategy, this is kind of giving them some good kind of like early feedback of like what's working for them, because this is also not a heavily monetized game. It's very respectful with one of the biggest problems with live service games is that they're always bludgeoning you over and over again about the things that you can buy. This is a game that's kind of like standing on its own on the fun. That's what's so funny.
That's what worries me about this, though. I think it's like this success feels like this will give PlayStation a little more, I guess you say, ammunition to triple down on live service going forward. You know?
Yes, depending on the lessons that they learned. Because this, at the very least, this was a cheap game to, like, if they were gonna put out this for $40, that tells you a lot about how much this game cost. So, I know we have been having a conversation that right now Sony's in an interesting pickle where they're selling a lot, their games are selling, but because they are the kinds of games that they've been pursuing has been of massive budget to just produce, the fact that they sell a lot is not making them like see a lot of profit. I understand where you like kind of like where your concern kind of comes from in the kind of like, yeah, they're seeing success. Is this kind of like what you're focusing? Let me remind you, kind of like the idea of them wanting to have like a live service or something was that these were going to be the games that were going to keep funding them continuing to do the kind of game they made. The problem under the Jim Ryan era, when they were greenlighting this stuff, was they spent even more money on like the games that we like, to the point that the dev budgets were becoming so insane and frankly unsustainable that their excuse was like, but those live service games are gonna fund us. At the very least, from like that, from that perspective, and based on what the Sony, the new CEO for Sony, Hiroki Totoki, mentioned to yesterday also, because they had like some the big financial a financial call to kind of tell how they did the last quarter, where they sold less consoles than they were expecting. They mentioned that they're still doing live service stuff, but they're still also doing single player stuff. They have not like back down for that. Here they're just gonna tie the belt over whatchamacallit, how they're gonna be making those games. But Helldivers feels like if the model of this game, a paid game with very little microtransactions, that's all about like the game instead of how they're trying to monetize you. That's kind of how they're pursuing it, and they're seeing they're kind of seeing the response to it. This would be the kind of game I would want from them in the few that they want to, because they have officially scaled back live service. They were working on 12, they're only working on 6. They like canceled a bunch of those because they know that they cannot just put all their eggs in that basket. So
here's my rebuttal, and it's like I agree with everything you're saying, and I understand you are going off of the information that you've been told, and I was like, I completely understand that. Here's my thing is like, so like looking at everything that what happened with Xbox today, where like Xbox's messaging was that, hey, how spicy am I getting today? You let me know. How spicy can I get?
You get as spicy as you want.
Damn. Let's get on. Let's get it on then. All right. So Xbox came out and said a while back that they were committed to doing we're committed to doing exclusives, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, they're committed to it, and then like as of this last couple of weeks, not quite committed to it.
Yeah.
We're gonna test the market out with that, and it's because money talks, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, Helldivers, to take this back to Helldivers for a second, and PlayStation said some stuff, and then they backed off of the live service train, and now they're seeing the success of Helldivers. I'm like, what's to stop them from just
flipping back
around and saying, yeah. I'm like, oh no. I'm like, evidently, and it's nothing against you or people who like live service games. Love what you love. I understand that. It's like, it's a dangerous slope though. You loving what you love comes at a cost. You know what I mean? Like, here's the thing. I'm like, I got some friends out here that love Venom. I think like Venom the movie.
Yeah, that movie's trash.
I think that movie's grade A trash.
Yeah.
I think that movie.
It was enjoyable trash, but it's trash.
I'm like, I think that movie's grade A trash. Like, I think it's dumpster juice trash. I don't ever want them to make more Venom 2. But I got people like homeboys and such like that supported that movie because they went out, they watched it, and then guess what? They are the reason they made a sequel.
A sequel, yeah, because the movie made money.
And guess what they ass did? They went and watched that sequel too, and now there's about to be a third one.
Yeah, so later this year, and a Craven movie too.
And a Craven movie and Madam Web movie, and so this is what I'm getting at here. I'm like, I want you to, like me and you homeboys, I want you to always love what you love. I want you to enjoy gaming however you can get it. But let's be real about it. You enjoying that aspect of gaming, like, and you monetizing and helping fund that monetization of that type of game, like it comes at a cost. Whether or not that cost be like, like transparent and everything's, and we can see that it's affecting single player games. It may not, it may affect it, it may not, but you can understand the worry there. You know what I mean? It's the Venom effect.
Yes, I can kind of say that. Thankfully, I can also stand that Helldivers is not trash. It's like it's not enjoyable just because it's like trash. It's like it's actually really well made. It's like it's clear that there was some love that was put into this, and I enjoy it kind of as a way to spice up their lineup. A lineup that a lot of people like rightfully meme, and the fact that yes, like ever since The Last of Us took off for Sony, it's like they have loved putting their camera behind their over the shoulder third person, like super cinematic, serious story and all of that. And I have been saying like those games are great because they're still being great. Obviously, we talk about my experience with Spider-Man 2 and how I've soured on my personal experience, what happened to me with the version I played of that game. But it's kind of like I still recognize kind of like that's still kind of like those games hit a level of quality that a lot of people still enjoy. I mean, it's just Spider-Man sold 10 million copies as of yesterday, people. So it's like a lot of people are still kind of buying those games. It's just the cost of making those games is kind of like becoming more unsustainable. And that's kind of where I was like, I understood the desire of wanting to do like a live server, because look over like what's happening with Xbox, because the idea of Xbox, what they're trying to do is sound, because they have all kinds of games. Are they all hitting the quality level of their competitors? That's their goal. They still haven't quite hit there. But like the idea of them like diversifying, having the different kinds of games, the ones that are more artistic, that are going to be more artistic expressions of like their developers versus the ones that are paying the bills. I kind of understood that, and I knew that Sony kind of was seeing where the depth cost of just them doing single player was doing, and now we know. It's insane that this is the worst profit they have done, when this was the year where they sold 21. They're aiming to sell 21 million consoles in one fiscal year, which that's a record. They were aiming for 25 million. That was gonna be like the all-time record in a year. They're gonna miss it because that was like a stratosphere. So, but them they just reduced their forecast to 21 million. So but it's like they sold 19 million in 2022 when they had more games. It's not bad. So it's like they're still like, gosh, it's like 21 million, that's as much as the Xbox Series X and S have sold lifetime. And they got to do that in like 1 year. But their profits are lower because of the cost. That's insane. So I kind of like understand the idea. And to me, like, I have played many live services. I'm also playing another one, Suicide Squad, which I want to save a lot of the conversation about whenever we do, whenever we do the episode here, because I can already sort of talk here a little bit about that game. But it's like I then see an example of Suicide Squad, $70 game that took 9 years to make, took a single player studio that we both love, that made to this day probably the most beloved single player superhero trilogy right now, still to be debated about whether Spider-Man, whenever Spider-Man 3 comes out, kind of like hits that level. But like, I think you and I agree, like, Arkham City is a masterpiece. Like, the second game out of that trilogy, I freaking love Arkham City. Arkham Knight, I freaking hate the Bat Tank, but everything else about that game is so good that I don't care too much that I hate the tank, because that's just how that was kind of like the level of that game. And then with Suicide Squad, we're like seeing a game where a few of the key, like, how can I say this? You see a lot of Rocksteady's strengths peppered briefly throughout the game, specifically in story cutscenes and in the production value. That is there. They took, because they did a game that's not usually their bag, and how they did it, it's like they have like one of the live service games with probably one of the worst mission varieties I've ever seen in a game. That is literally just horde mode the game. That's completely outside of like the variety that we experienced in their previous games, and that's all because these are companies that were experts in one kind of game that decided to do this other kind of game, when the right way would be to make companies that are more specialized in that kind of game, and you leave the single player stuff alone. That's kind of like one of the lessons that Sony learned the hard way, or more like after Jim Ryan announced he was leaving, what happened immediately? Last of Us Factions was canceled. Because like they, and obviously like the fact that they learned that if they went forward with Factions, it was gonna make it required all the resources of the studio. I'm like, you should have known that from the beginning if you were making that kind of game. Like, that's something you learn. Like, you cannot be working on a multiplayer game for 4 years to then realize, oh crap, if we release this, that's all we have to support now. And they at least smartly were like, no, we like our strengths are in single player, and we're gonna take the L. And we have 2 single player games in development now. We're a single player studio. It's like, especially seeing what happened with Naughty Dog, and seeing now the success of Helldivers, like studio that's second party because they don't own Arrowhead. I can imagine they will buy Arrowhead after this, like guaranteed, because it's like, have your studios that are like, have them do that. Don't touch the golden gooses. Have both. Have those that maybe hit it hard, so that then you can at least keep the prestige in this side. I feel that's what I'm hoping. That's kind of what they're seeing here, because what's funny is that Helldivers 2 is like a fulfillment of what they said they were going to do in 2022. Herman Holt said that, we're doing live service games, and any game that's live service is launching simultaneously on PC and on console, because we need like a big player base. Lo and behold, that's what's happening. It's like PC is like seeing the bigger, like the big wins. So the strategy of what they were seeing is like pleasing me a little bit, because after we saw about what's happening with Naughty Dog, I think at least Sony's gonna pursue this in the way you want it, which is Insomniac is like, think about it. It's like they were wanting Insomniac to make a multiplayer game, a Spider-Verse style game that got canceled. That was like in the leaks. So it's like they were trying to make the Golden Goose Studios do live service games. They were wanting like they were trying like Sony under Jim Ryan. They were trying to like do the like them sacrifice what they're good at to try to get into this kind of like monetized hell that is the live service game. Like, and that's what you don't want, because how often have we seen single player studios like pivot to that and fail? We've seen it often. Anthem, BioWare's failure, like them doing something completely anti-BioWare, failed. Crystal Dynamics with their excellent Tomb Raiders game, doing the Avengers game, which this campaign of that game, just the story, you see a lot of, gosh, it's like the Tomb Raider like shines a lot here, and this godforsaken live service model just sinks this entire game. So it's like with Suicide Squad, gosh, the production value of this thing is like, this is probably one of like the most lavishly produced games in this like in this kind of like pocket. Why was this production? No, like for real, just like knowing that it was like 7 years. A lot of people are like 9 years, but no, like they started in 2017 because they did DLC for Arkham Knight and then the Arkham VR game in 2016. They started in 2017, but it's like, guys, it's like they have such a keen attention to detail. You see it in the facial animations and like the cutscene quality. It's like, that's just so pocketed there. Why wasn't that just in like a single player game? Like that was just that, instead of like when you're playing Suicide Squad, like you're in combat and the UI is like a complete masturbation of this icons and all that. It's like you've seen probably some of this UI, like the UI noise of that game, that is just like nuts to see. That is like, that's just kind of like inherent with that kind of game, that it makes me sad. It'd be like, no, it's like the worst that we can think is like that the single player studios that are experts in their field going into here, because we've always seen that kind of failure. And the thing is that I enjoyed the live service elements of Suicide Squad, because I think in that from the looter perspective of things, especially right now where as I'm in the end game, they nailed the fundamentals, but it's like the rest of that game was not it. So it's like, that's still really disappointing, because it's like, I can separate myself from the fact that I love that kind of game and knowing that they have made good effort into making a good one of those, but that's not what we wanted from them. That's absolutely not what we wanted from them. And what, especially, we're definitely going to talk about story spoilers whenever I do your episode, but it's like,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, with Helldivers, I would say, at the very least, with the moves that have been happening with Sony post Jim Ryan and this game succeeding that way, this gives me hope that at least Sony knows to keep both pockets separate. Because I know your fear is that when those pockets want to intertwine, that's where then you will lose the kinds of games that you like, and we've seen that happen already. So yeah, I would say like Helldivers right now gives me hope that at least they found success with one that is specifically targeting that kind of game. A studio's been like, they didn't sacrifice a single player Arrowhead game. It's like this is the kind of game that they made, and they found success there. So that should be how you do it, not like retroactively fit your studios.
I think my trepidation right now is that I look at the landscape, and it feels like PlayStation, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like it feels like when PlayStation is at this middle point to where like we want to go full live service. We've allocated a whole lot of resources into that. Hey, we're dialing it back. We're now going single player, and then like it feels like, you know, like we have a change in leadership here, and we still have board members to appease. It feels like there's not a clear-cut announced direction yet, and I think like, and it feels like we're on the razor's edge right now, to where like any sort of like momentum could shift everything like one way or another, you know, like because right now everything's hearsay, because like I get it, we've got confirmation from news sources that say this was canceled, that was canceled, and I get that, but like right now it feels like until something's announced, like until Ghost of Tsushima is announced, like 2 is announced, we know that game's in production right now, but until it's announced, like they can go any way they want with a lot of different studios right now. We still don't know what Bluepoint's working on, and
you kind of want like that showcase that brings a lot of these studios, and they announce their new single player games. That's kind of where you want, right? Just to feel to be more assuaged over the direction.
For sure, and also like, you know, it feels like while we're on the razor's edge, any win for live service is like it's like ammunition at that point. You know what I mean? It's like So say like, and again, I want you to eat. I want you to have fun with the games you love, and I know y'all love these live service games. But like, shout out to y'all. I hope y'all have fun being a bug buster or like
Bug Buster or Robot Buster.
Yeah, Robot Buster. Yeah, yeah. It sort of feels like was it Star Troopers?
Yeah, the Starship Troopers.
Yeah, yeah. It sort of feels like that. So I'm like, I want y'all to have fun with that, but like, I'm sort of like, I'm looking at this and I'm going, oh shit. I'm like, this game's doing well.
Yeah.
Now, if Concord hits, I'm like, why? What sense would it make to go back to doing these Uncharted's, these Last of Us's, these God of Wars, these Spider-Man 2's and such like that? Like, and Ghost of Tsushima's. What sense is it going to make for them to do all these games? And like, all you have to do is put out these measly $40 game right here that everyone's not only evidently the audience is there, they're paying money for it. You're double dipping with PC on a lot of things, and I'm like, what sense is it gonna make? I'm like, why would you keep making these gourmet steaks when people are eating these trash can burgers that you're selling for $1? I'm like, why would you keep doing that? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think it's like the kind of like I mentioned, it's like the ideal way is that you have both. Like, again, like just taking the example, like at least what Xbox is trying to do, that's kind of like the idea is like they already have their live service golden goose. There's even ones that they want to even expand further because those things could eventually like bring in more cash, but they're also trying to pursue single player stuff. It's like seeing it from and also like seeing the things that Sony is investing in. It's like Stellar Blade, still single player game. Rise of the Ronin, single player game. It's like, and that's still something that they're like putting their logo over that. Obviously, not as lavishly produced as like their first party stuff, but again, it's like first party is kind of like in a different pocket. But you also know kind of like how they're trying to like keep up the portfolio they're trying to offer. I mean, them putting all their money to secure Final Fantasy VII. The remakes, like as producers, you've seen how those games look. It's like those things definitely look like they have money like screaming in every pixel of the screen from them. It's like they're doing also all those kinds of investments. So it's like, you know, that they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. And to me, like the good sign is what happened with Naughty Dog, because clearly they could have. I would have been like, this could have been the worst scenario. Factions actually releases. Factions is a success. Yeah. Then Naughty Dog has to keep like just producing Factions because in the multiplayer if that had come out, if that had been a success, I would be in your camp, because then it's like, then they would see that, oh, we took Naughty Dog, Game of the Year winner in the single player narrative, in the narrative realm, we made them pivot and that succeeded. Santa Monica, you're doing that now. Sucker Punch, you're doing that now. Insomniac, you're doing that now. Thankfully, that didn't happen, so I'm more like, okay, at least they're trying to keep those two things separate. And I also I've said it's like because you kind of mentioned that. I remember it was like Nintendo or like a From Software. They don't need like a live service thing to kind of like do and find the success and all that. Is like, yes, like they're very successful. They're also very smart in how they spend their money too. And again, and kind of what it is, like, weirdly enough, EA had sort of been doing it right, because their garbage FIFA games were like bringing 75% of their revenue. What did they do? They were like, we can afford to do a few single player stuff, and they did. So it's like, at least from that area, it's like, at least I like the idea of like something kind of like feeding the goose, because if that's not feeding the goose, and then they're exploding all their hope on a single player stuff where we are right now, that if you don't make your numbers, you're out the door. And usually, like, when then you have something that's like feeding the beast, you can have like more mild success, especially if you're like in a company that's like that has so much overhead, like a lot of these publishers that is that operate in that way. That if you have something that's kind of like at least feeding, because with EA it's also Apex Legends, and that didn't stop them from investing on the Star Wars games. And they're also doing other Star Wars games also that were single player. They were buggy messes, but I love those games too.
I was just about to say, I'm like, okay. Here's my counterpoint, because I love this conversation we're having here. It's like, we've never seen anyone do it successfully, and we've never seen anyone do, hey, we're like a group of studios that do live service and we do single player games. We've never seen that done successfully. Like EA's done it, and guess what? Both Jedi games, buggy messes, real with controversy and such like that. And like none of those lived up to what the potential of what they could have been. And like I love those games,
and they were pretty beloved. I would say they were like, obviously they were not like in the game of the year conversation like at the top, but they were actually pretty beloved and they sold really well. So it's like depends on the kind of success you want. Like if what you want is that someone that is doing the live service stuff and then has a single player game that then is getting all these rewards like at the top of the year, I kind of understand it, but I would also counterpoint this, like they have also found success because if the first Jedi game was not a success, we wouldn't have seen another one. And they allowed, and not even Dead Space Remake, a super really well made game that got buried like because of coming early in the year and kind of like overshadowed by Resident Evil 4. But that game is like, I'm not gonna like take the merit away that the fact that they did a really excellent game in the Dead Space Remake too, that was so different also from the original and the quality.
Here's my thing about that though. I'm like, okay, so you had a team do a remake, and that's fine. It's a good quality game and such like that. But on the Star Wars front of that, I'm like, you cannot tell me that those sales weren't plateaued a bit, especially the intro sales of the second game, because of how buggy it was at launch. You know what I'm saying? Like,
do you remember what came out around that time also?
Yeah,
Zelda.
Zelda did, and Diablo was around that time too. I mean, like it was a juggernaut time, and I'm not saying it's just because of that, but it was a factor. Like there's people who said, I only have $70 to spend in this time frame. Am I going to play Diablo? Am I going to spend it on Tears of the Kingdom, or am I going to spend it on Star Wars here?
Jedi Survivor was in the top 10 best-selling games of 2023. Like,
yeah, it's great.
Yeah, so it was like, it's still like hitting top 10 was like not. It beat Starfield.
Yeah,
Starfield was like 11. I just put the statistics. So.
And that's my thing is like Xbox has been trying to double dip for a long time. I'm like with live service and single player, and let's be honest. I'm like, they haven't really nailed it at either one of them. You know what I'm talking about? Like their most highly successful game, you can argue, over the past 5 years is Power World, and that's not even like a first party studio.
Yeah, that was just the most zeitgeisty game they've got right now in recent times. And the funniest part, their Xbox version's bad. The best version's on Steam, but they have a lot of like they were able to kind of like goose up those numbers. It was like, hey, 12 million people bought it there, but 7 million played it on Game Pass and also in the Game Pass apps. So it's like, we get to share that because we helped like put out the word that a lot of people could play this, and I bet a lot of people start playing it on Xbox. Like, nah, I'm gonna go buy it on PC. But I see kind of like what you're saying. So
like we have very little success points of like saying, hey, we have a group of studios and we're going to do live service and we're going to do single player and we're going to make it all work, and both of them are going to be premium, both of them are going to be happy, and both of them, like, game development's hard. I get that. I really do get that. It's just like, I'm like, I've seen so much evidence of where people try to do both things, and neither one of them like are better off for it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so I'm like, okay, I get what you mean. You can have your cake and eat it too. You can be, because there's people like you who love those games as a service games. They love the popcorn games where they can just get in and have some fun with their friends.
And specifically because they're the ones that keep you fat as you wait for the next big single player. So that's kind of how I usually see it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm one of those people who like, man, I got tons of indies to play. I got like
I see you play a Civilization 6 so often. I see you in Discord. You have your camera.
Yeah, so I'm like Civilization also drops different things. I'm like, it's also like,
that's a live service.
Is it?
Yeah.
How would you count that as a live service game?
Because it keeps giving you more content. That's kind of like how everything's kind of like lumped together now, which is so weird. A lot of people think of live service as, oh yeah, this has loot. No, that's just that's just kind of like just a generalization. Yeah,
I'm not even talking about the looter shooter. Live, so because when I bought this, like I would say like NBA 2K is a live service game. Yep. I get that. Like Civilization is like you're straight up playing one game, and then like you have, I would call it more DLC based if you also, like buy DLC for it. And if that's the case, I'm like, God of War had DLC. You know what I mean? It's not
Yeah.
a live service game
And
though.
that's what this is the conversation that I had with Travis. It's like we have to like start like differentiating like what is an actual live service versus, because a lot of people have lumped a live service as, oh yeah, a game that it's still like it keeps having additions regardless of what kind of additions are there. So it's kind of like how Cyberpunk, which is clearly not a live service game, won ongoing game of the year at the Game Awards.
No, for
There's
sure.
like because of its mix of the free stuff that they kept adding because they were fixing the damn game on top of the expansion. So it's like a really modeled. Everyone has decided to just like we used to have like games that had DLC has existed for years. They have just all lumped them all together. That's that's kind of like what's so funny about it, and it's like and there's also to me like there's nothing wrong with like a game giving you more content like over time. There's like I like kind of like that idea. It's like the live service games that I really do take issue with because they always like have subsumed, and the studio that tries to make that game and it doesn't fail are the ones that are trying to do looter shooters that they lump the looter shooter with a live service, despite the fact that you can play Borderlands. That's a looter shooter. That's not a live service. But it's like the ones that are trying to do like a looter, like a looter live service. That is like it's all about that loot chase, kind of like you call it the empty calories of kind of like getting more and more gear and all that, and they're trying to give you like more content like over time and all that. A lot of people think of, oh yeah, live services is gonna be like a gear stuff, blah blah blah. It's like that's the one that I need the industry to find a way to like separate it from like the live service conversation, because there have been other kind of like live services. Like I would dare say, like if you keep getting expansions of Civ 6, how long ago was that game? That game came out in 2016.
Yeah, I would say that.
And imagine if it's still getting like new content, that's still a live service because it's like still serving you more content and it's still kind of like the same base. And there's like kind of like differences to that. And I'm not opposed to kind of like the games that are a little bit more chill with how much you're trying to extract from you, because there's also kind of like the worst kind of live service. Like to me, Avengers to me is still the clear like worst example of it all, of a game that did not deserve to be in the looter kind of like in the looter genre because of how badly they did that, how brazen they were with its monetization, like so often, because it was such an expensive game for them to make and they were trying to recoup so much back because a lot of people didn't really like it. That game lost a catastrophic amount of money that Square Enix even had to sell the damn company to recoup. That's why they sold it to Embracer. So it's like I think there's different layers. And to me, like for example, Helldivers 2 right now is kind of like in that, okay, you're in a good spot here, because it's like at the end of the day, it's like this is a game that is fun. It's not a game that is trying to weasel me into wanting to spend more money. Even like the developer made make the news. It's kind of like you have to earn the right to ask people for more money, and I'm like, thank you, because that means you have your heart in the right place. A lot of people that trying to enter the live service kind of like boat right now sometimes do it just with the goal of like, no, we're gonna extract a lot of money if we hit it hard here with like all the skins that we're gonna like start like dropping, aka Suicide Squad and things like that. And those are the games that the live service that's all in just for the monetization, those are the clear losers now, because the pie is full. You have Call of Duty, you have Fortnite, you have Apex Legends. It's like you have like the games that are already pre-established. It's like those are the games that are already subsuming. It's like better to do different kind of live service. That is more like, no, we're gonna make a fun game that we're gonna then give you more content like over time. I feel that should be the thing that you want more of, because you can put so much in the bucket. So
yeah, I understand. I you know, like I would consider live service more something that has like I would probably say like when you see a game and it has a end game, you know, to where like regardless of genre and such like that, I think that's more live service than,
and here's what's so funny. You know what that used to be called? MMO.
Yeah, for sure.
And the thing is that a lot of people have been like, because the term MMO was a toxic, because you hear an MMO is like massive multiplayer online. So it's like a lot of like the live service became kind of like the pseudonym of like an MMO experience. What you hate is MMO lights. That's the kind of games you hate, and those are the kind of games that have all failed, that are not called Destiny.
That's why I consider more live service games, because I'm like, if we're looking at games with DLC and such like that, I'm like every game has DLC at this point.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah. It's so funny that way. It's that's kind of, I would hope that it's so funny because like Destiny, like early on was one of those games that decided to straddle the line and not call it an MMO, even though it clearly was. Like it's modeled against World of Warcraft, that premier MMO. So it's like, but they're like, no, it's a sure world shooter. Then when like Activision split with Bungie was like, oh no, this isn't shooter MMO. They embraced that. I'm like, oh yeah, that's kind of like what it is. Then you know who was the one that coined the term live service? Square Enix. Mm-hmm. And guess what game? Final Fantasy 15, because of DLC. And then then because they were like, they launched Final Fantasy 15 in 2016, which the launch version was not a good game. I hated it. It was until all the DLC came in, and then they kind of came in with the Royal Edition to fix it. That was like, okay, this is finally good. But it was kind of like they were the first one of trying to turn. Was like, yeah, we see this game as just not the product at launch. We see it kind of like as a live service delivery where we have all these plans for DLC that are gonna complete this game. And then Ubisoft kind of adopted that term of like, oh yeah, we see our games as live service deliveries of games. And then suddenly everyone decided to like around the time Anthem came out, Jose's like, oh yeah, this is live service. Then everything kind of got lumped there. It's like it's been like weird association. So it's like, and I'm like at least pushing back against some of that notion. It's like, because MMO, like anyone that's trying to launch pseudo MMOs, like fucking Skull and Bones, like that's like that's where I like take issue with. Like that's a nice segue. I'm reviewing Skull and Bones. Let me tell you, I am having a miserable time with this damn game because
really?
Yes. Especially after I've been playing more and more of it, is like,
I wish I could say I was surprised.
But. Yes, but it's like they nail one area, both combat, because they took the bones from Black Flag, and Odyssey, and Odyssey, and a little bit of Valhalla, and it's like, okay.
Have it?
Yeah, a little bit. When you're like in the boats, it's like it has kind of like the same mechanics when you're kind of like rowing around in England.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, so it's like it was basically the same mechanics, but I would say Odyssey and Black Flag are more kind of like the basis of it. And I would say Dave, for a game that laser focus on the fact that, oh yeah, this is a pirate game where you're just piloting the ship, and then when you're in kind of like in hub area, it's just a freaking MMO style. Like, here's my character running around, talking to banders, grabbing quests and all that. But I'm going back into it. It's like, again, another one of these games is kind of like a pseudo MMO, where oh yeah, I'm gonna craft a green level cannon, or a blue level cannon, or a purple level cannon, or a mortar. What does that sound like? Like,
that's live service.
Yeah, that's an MMO. Yes, that's a very live service-ish MMO style of game. And so sailing around trying to do a lot of these side quests is a miserable time. The world is so big, and I was like, because I was trying to capture footage because Ains, my AIC, he was like, let's try to do more video reviews. I'm reviewing it because I was like, I was not gonna play this game, and then Ubisoft contacted us, being like, hey, we're gonna give codes, you want it? I was like, it's rare for us to offer us codes, so yeah, I'll do it. I was gonna wait till Final Fantasy, but yeah, I'm like review.
Nobody want to touch this thing.
Yeah, that tells you a lot. It's like that. Yeah, so it's like I was talking with Steve Esposito from like SG also. I was like, we were talking about, it's like, it does look a little pretty when you're like on outside, because it's kind of like Valhalla, you know, like that engine, like in like the macro, like with the that art style. The art style is the Anvil engine, so it's like it has moments of beauty in it, and then you really see the trash fire when you start seeing the robotic facial animations from like the quest givers and all that. And I hate pulling I wish this was this, but I'm like, how do you spend 11 years trying to make this pirate game that clearly you wanted to do it when you heard everyone tell you, gosh, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag was so good. What was the best part about the thing? When you were being a pirate, not just the Assassin's Creed stuff. Just take the Assassin's Creed stuff out and make a pirate game. And they just did a third of it. Because to me, what made Black Flag so cool was like, yeah, you're sailing around, you have the ship combat, but then you're gonna capture the ship. You face a ship, you can capture it, and then you take control of your character, and then you jump to the other ship, fight it, and loot it. The looting of ships is a cutscene in this game. No. I'm like, yeah, so it's like what? How? Like you made this like, yes, I understand kind of like the idea of like, oh yeah, it's rare for you to get a game that is just about you manning a ship and improving your ship and upgrading the ship. But I'm like, when you know what it was birthed from, it's like, it's weird that 11 years were spent to make a game so inferior to the game from 2013. And on top of that, how this game became like a 5v5 ship battle game. Ugh. And now it's a MMO style like quest where you're just like writing around. It's like, I tell you, don't touch this game. This is absolutely like, with the things that you don't like about games, that is Skull and Bones. That and again, that's the kind of games that I am against most of the time, because I just know that it's like them trying to do the pseudo MMOs that are just trying to just string you along. That is a kind of live service game that I'm totally against, because 90% of the piles of dead that we've seen from that genre are from those. So I don't like. I hate that I committed to do a review of this, but I tell you, I was starting to like capture footage, and I'm like, gosh, I've captured 18 minutes of this, and I can't find a way to make this exciting. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how we would be able to like make this any of these exciting, because it is soothing at times. Like, if you just again shut your brain off as you're like riding along in your ship and taking in the abyss, especially when rain comes in, like the weather effects are actually, they look really beautiful. I'm like, oh, this is a vibe. Like, I'm heading to like this seeming hurricane that's coming in, and like you see the thunder, and the thunder can hit you, so it can destroy you. The thunder can hit an enemy ship if you encounter it. So it's like, it can be dynamic like that, but it's like 1/5 of an interesting game. The rest of it, the kind of story that it tries to tell, that it starts with like the dawn of capitalism was like ruining pirates and all of that. None of that is followed through. You're a mute, silent protagonist. The voice acting is very robotic. It's like, it's a kind of like a, so in a contrast with, like, I recently played the Avatar game. Obviously, you didn't quite mind that Avatar game. I played it. I reviewed it. It was good. It was a good slight evolution for Far Cry, but it's a Far Cry game. But it's like,
it's a Ubisoft game.
Exactly. it's a Ubisoft the Ubisoft game can get in that Far Cry style. So it's like, you either want that or you don't. But it's like, this feels like it wants to have that, but it's so limited, and you can't help but be like, why do you have to pursue this? You could have just made Black Flag again. You could have just done that. It would have taken you less time to do this instead of spending 11 years to do that. And it's so funny because this is at $70. This is $70 sucker. Oof. And then the Ubisoft CEO was like, it is $70 because this is a quadruple A production. And then when you see it, you'll understand. And I'm like, I see it while I'm at the ship. I don't see it while I'm like walking around this lifeless hubs. So that sometimes like the people will comment on things that you've done, but it's like, it's definitely like the game you fear it may have been. So it's like, and that's kind of like the kinds of games that people should stop doing. They should just stop. This is just so lifeless. This is just such a money sink, money pit. That's where I hope the industry eventually learns to just stop. It's like playing like Helldivers 2 like next to it. I'm like, this could both be categorically called live service, and they couldn't be more different. Like, they could not be more different in like what are their attempts. Like, I already got to see the shit, like what they're trying to sell me with Skull and Bones. I'm like, yeah, you're just bracing, you fucks.
So help me to understand. Okay, so we got Skull and Bones, which is basically you just commandeering, you're basically controlling one ship, and that's it.
Yeah, and you're just controlling a ship.
And you're upgrading all your stuff with your ship and such like that, being the best pirate you can be. And then you have Helldivers, which is basically Division with bugs.
I wouldn't even call it Division. There's not even loot. Okay. It's like it's very simple. It's like it's all about like keeping everything as just a more traditional upgrade curve, and you with either solo or like dropping in with match-made teammates, doing objectives in this like specific planets, complete objectives, and then extract from those planets. So
objectives like Destiny objectives or
similar,
more like Battlefield? Give me the objective.
Yeah, it was like Battlefield is a good way to put it. Yeah, kind of like Battlefield, a mix of Destiny and Battlefield.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. That's what I was trying to figure out.
And why I feel so much better about Helldivers, the price.
So, like, was that year before last? We had what was it, Outriders?
2 years ago.
2
Outriders.
years ago. Yeah, year before last. So
Actually,
this is
3 year. Holy crap, that was 3 years ago. 2021.
2020.
Yeah,
Okay,
2021. Yeah.
2021. Okay.
Mhm.
Does this feel better than that?
I would say like mechanically, I would say I prefer Helldivers. Even though I would say Outriders was a very good double A style looter shooter that thankfully was not a live service. He knew what it was and let me out. So.
Okay. Okay. So when you were playing Skull and Bones, like, and so there's no. Does it feel like there's any DNA there that's worth salvaging? Do you feel like this is just something that felt like a money grab? Do you feel like
it just felt like an idea that they didn't see through to its logical complete version, which was piloting a ship and then be a swashbuckling pirate. Especially, I understood the idea of it just being a 5v5, like just multiplayer, like versus a ship combat, because obviously there's like Ubisoft have found success with Rainbow Six Siege, a 4v4 kind of multiplayer set that was just that, and it's still very successful. It still pays the bills for them, but it's like this went through so many different iterations that I cannot believe that this is where the iteration they landed on. That's what sucks. That's what sucks so much about knowing what they had. We knew what they could have had, and this is where they landed in. That is like the ship combat of Odyssey and Black Flag was great. It's still great here. Dare I say it's even better because they laser focus on it. It's easier to control the things you shoot in the ship. That's not all I enjoyed about those games. So it's wild that they decided that this is how they were gonna stretch a long game with this. That is just miserable like 80% of the time, because it's like you don't do much other than sail the ship around and hopefully engage on a plunder mission where it's like you're like, imagine you're like, we're gonna invade this town. My pirates are gonna go plunder this thing. Imagine, can you remember in Assassin's Creed Valhalla where you could like start a raid and then you go through like you go through like the towns and all that and all that. So it's like I can imagine like the scenario where you do that as a pirate. That's the pirate fantasy. We're gonna plunder this town. We're gonna sack it. Oh, we're gonna start a plunder. My NPCs are gonna go in. I'm gonna stay here in the ship, battle waves and waves of ships as I wait for them to finish plundering, and that's it. So it's like everything is so laser focused on just being in the ship that is like you can see, had this not being the game that it is, that then they had to put the live service code on top of it. I could see the RPG pirate game this could have been in the Ubisoft mold. That it still would have been a Ubisoft thing, but I could at least have had more fun than what I'm just having at this point.
I think that's what I think. Like Ubisoft is the primary like example that gives me concern about the PlayStation model with Helldivers. You know, because I'm like, you and I disagree on the quality of Ubisoft games because like I've always had this like the saying like Ubisoft swims in sevens, and that's
especially recently, especially this generation, that's been more often that because they swim in sevens. It feels like they swim in sevens because they never really upgraded their formula. This was a formula that was given the nines a decade ago. But that's kind of like the problem of them just like still doing the same formula over and over and over and over again. Eventually, that loses its luster. So, and they homogenize a lot. So it was like, you know what a Ubisoft game is. It's a meme. So.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the problem, though, is like, they have the routine on the single player side and very formulaic and such like that. And then on the multiplayer side, I'm like, they're so heavy with games as a service model now. And it's like, how am I, like with Ubisoft doing this and 2K doing that as well. And EA has done it with very mixed results. I'm like, I understand, like, the
EA weirdly is like they destroyed their Battlefield franchise by mishandling it, but Apex Legends is like one of the biggest successes. It's like, it's a monkey's paw over there. But then with Ubisoft, here's what's weird. When they did just multiplayer focused stuff that were not MMOs, they found success. For Honor and Rainbow Six and Rainbow Six Siege. In the MMOs light space, they sort of found success with The Division to the point that they're even doing a third one. But then everything else that they have attempted, the Hyperscapes, they tried to do like a Ghost Recon Battle Royale that got canceled. X-Defiant, which a lot of people are saying that it could actually be a good competitor for Call of Duty, is still not out because it's like the failed certification and all that. It's like they, weirdly enough, is like in the multiplayer space, like Ubisoft likes to put all the eggs in different baskets, and then they homogenize a lot their single player stuff into all feeling the same, into the same kind, to then the point that they started doing loot in their single player stuff, and that didn't belong. That shouldn't have been there. So it's like it's a homogenization nightmare over there. That and that's kind of like why Prince of Persia, which I have played it's like I have played way better Metroidvanias. For Ubisoft, it's like that felt like such a breath of fresh air from them, completely against the wave of what they were doing. That is kind of like the energy that I needed. That I'm hoping, especially right now, it's selling really soft, but I'm hoping word of mouth like picks up because a lot of people are really championing it. Even though I feel there are way better games this year.
That's gonna do bang busters when it hit $20. Like,
yes, exactly. And as it keeps building, it's like, and at least that they can take the win critically. Be like, hey, instead of you swimming in sevens, because you're just in Formula Land, that it's selling for you, but it's like at a certain point that's just diminishing returns. That's kind of why they said that they were going back to basics because of that. Yeah. So, but it's like it's still like a formula they have to break away from. Skull and Bones, what it feels weird about it coming out now is that this game was before they made the mission statement this last summer, the summer showcase, that they were going back to basics. Mm-hmm. This feels like a remnant of that era, and it really feels like that. This should have come out like 2 years ago. For them to
get it out.
Yes, you have to get it out. The fact that this comes out right now feels weird next to Prince of Persia, where that feels so fresh for them. But
it kills all the momentum too, man.
Exactly. Like, it just kills all the momentum. Like, this thing is gonna. I would be surprised if this thing breaks a 6. I tell you right now, I would be very shocked. That's kind of how I feel about it. It's like, I know Steve, that's also playing it with me right now, is like, he feels very negative about it. It's like, this is probably the worst Ubisoft game that I ever played. He feels that way.
Oof.
Yes. Yes. So that's what I tell you. It's like, I don't know, like, to me, it's like, I feel kind of like in that Madame Web pocket. Just so you know, people, I went to see Madame Web. It's like, it's in that middle nothing spot that you kind of wish was like maybe worse than it is for you to make fun of. It's just so bland. There's nothing worse than bland stuff. I hate unseasoned food. That's kind of how it feels like. Like
I want something to be bad or something to be good.
Yeah, exactly. Because at least I can roast something that feels like rotten. To me, it's like it's the ship parts of it feel so well produced that I cannot call it a bad game.
Oh, but, wow, you're generous.
Yes, no, that's what I'm saying. Like the ship parts that it's like, when I'm like looking at it and I look at the landscape and how the ship controls, and then when I'm engaging with the boat combat, I'm like, okay, this is. Are
you having fun?
Fun at times when I'm not getting destroyed by a level 7 ship that suddenly comes out of nowhere and ends me. So there's like a little dynamicism that happens there that can be fun, but then it's like, I'm trying to do the side quest where I have to like find the trade routes to find ship that have a specific item that I have to loot, and I'm like rowing up and down this long trying to find the ship. I'm like scoping them, looking to see like it has the thing, and it's like, it feels like I feel like I'm wasting time here. This could have been more tighter. It's like there's so much. There's like even the good parts are like undone by stretches of nothingness. So that's kind of like what frustrates me the most, because Black Flag at least felt tight. Like you felt like at least when you were like flying, like sailing your ship in the high seas and getting into the different islands and all that, is like, and the fact that you could do different activities within Black Flag, like, okay, I'm gonna go beneath the sea to see what I can plunder from like some ships. Oh, I see a whale. Let's start like a chase of the whale as we hunt the whale. Here you see a whale, you just aim a cannon, shoot it, and then press triangle to loot. That's it. It's like it's just like you can see elements of, gosh, I remember this from what inspired this, that was so more built in to like feel more fulfilling than this. Like, I really
feel lived in and all.
It has good ambience. The ambience is good. Like because again, like the production value can be like good outside when you're like sailing around, and then like you see through some ports, and then they're like full of ships and all that. I'm like, okay, it's like,
how do the characters look though? Like character models, like when you're outside of the ship, how do they look?
Insert the black guy with the drink.
Oh no!
You know the Jacks. The Jacks. I mean, yeah, they're not good. It's like and I know they can be better. I saw the character models of the Avatar game. I was like, yeah, that was way better than this. It's like, it looks old. It's like, it looks modern and old at the same time. But that's like the weird thing, that technology that they're using. It's like, it feels like a game that absolutely I'm seeing the dev time throughout. Like in at least like to its credit, it doesn't feel stitched together like a game that took 11 years to make. Like it at least is kind of like functional. That's still damning with praise. That's still like it might be like, oh yeah, at least for a game that took this long to make, I know it went through different iterations. At least it still feels fully formed, but it also feels weirdly half baked. Weirdly half baked.
I know you're gonna think I'm weird about this, but like, do you think this game could have used a little bit more Immortals Phoenix Rising or where like this Immortals had character, whether or not you wanted to say like
Immortals absolutely or anything, I would say Immortals Phoenix Rising is probably my favorite Ubisoft like modern 2020 onward Ubisoft game that came out, because at least in their formula that had charm, that had character. It was not the full Breath of the Wild clone, but it didn't need it to be, because it was also an Assassin's Creed Odyssey clone, and that was and that was still fun. It was like it had character and personality, and I hate that one because they launched it next to Watch Dogs, and Assassin's Creed it barely sold, because those at least were like more established stuff. And Watch Dogs Legion is like was very vanilla in many ways, but I did like the idea of like the infinite NPC loop that you can control different things, because it was like, okay, it's like it had a kernel of a good idea here, but it still kind of like fell into formula. It's like I just wish that this had not embraced the MMO style and they had just gone full in with the RPG, because there's RPG in that ship. I can see them the way you could have done a pirate RPG. There is no pirate RPG. You had it there, Ubisoft, and then you only nailed one element that a lot of people do like, but they do like it as a companion to the other stuff that you could do. I feel they read the room wrong of saying no. The best thing that people love about Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag is sailing the high seas and plundering and all that. I feel they read it wrong. Like I do believe they read that thing really wrong, and they're gonna pay the price for it, because it's like, is there indecision of them going from, oh yeah, I could have seen just a ship game that's just battles. That idea, I mean, it wouldn't have been for me, because I'm not the solo multiplayer guy. Like the multiplayer that I like is PvE, not PvP. That like PvP can go die in a trash fire for all I care. Like obviously a lot of people love their PvPs, but that's just not for me. I like my PvE stuff. That's the area of multiplayer that I do like. At least I would have respected this being like, okay, this would have been a 5v5 pirate game, at least taking the mechanics. I wish it had been the RPG. Moving on. In here, I see the RPG and it's missing so much. They have served me the French fries. Where's my burger? That's kind of how it feels. That's kind of how it feels like. It's like, okay, these are tasty French. Like, yes, there's bacon in this French fries. There's a little cheese. Where the things that are kind of okay, but where's my burger?
Alejandro, what's next for Ubisoft? Like, what's their next big release this year?
Outlaws, from what I know.
Is there not anything before Outlaws?
Let me see. From like what they announced, most of it is out, because unless there's showcase, we have a show. The Ubisoft Summer Showcase. We'll know more if there's anything else besides Star Wars Outlaws. So
how many? You know this off the top of your head, probably way more than I do. How many studios they got over there?
50. Dude, you know how many studios work in this thing? In Skull and Bones? 15. I counted them. They were all over like Ubisoft Shanghai, Ubisoft Singapore, Ubisoft Bordeaux, Ubisoft Montreal. It's like it was like a bunch of. There's like, holy crap! A lot of people work on this thing, even though the main development was done at Ubisoft Singapore. And I know that there was stories saying that apparently Ubisoft wanted to cancel this thing a long time ago, but they couldn't, because main development was done at Ubisoft Singapore, and Singapore was forcing them to be like,
yeah, you're going to develop a game for us.
Yeah, you're making you started a game with our developers, you're going to see this thing through. So I think that's kind of like what happened. What happened there. They had another guy, like they had a studio that probably wasn't too capable of, and they had to settle everyone because they needed to get this thing out. So
how many studios worked on Prince of Persia?
One. Montpellier.
Okay, so my thing is, it's like I'm looking at the Ubisoft method of doing things. Mm-hmm. You got, how many is that? You said 50, right?
Yeah, 50. Yeah, there's like 50 studios. There could be more, there could be less, because I know they have like different whatchamacallit, they have different, because they have like a Ubisoft team like a different areas of the city, weirdly. Yeah. So like different cities in the world. So you got your Ubisoft Paris, you got Ubisoft San Francisco.
Let's just say there's 15 studios with 15 people, mm-hmm. Or 15 to 50 people in each studio. That's a generous number, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, so you got one studio. Let's say you got one of them doing The Division, right?
Hmm.
You got one of them doing Prince of Persia.
Yeah, because you got Massive, like Ubisoft Massive did The Division, and they did the Avatar game, and they're doing Outlaws. So they're kind of
okay. Massive is doing all those.
Mhm.
What the hell is everybody else doing?
supporting everything else. That's that's what's so funny. They have so many studios that are all about you have your main team, and then everyone else does your support.
So let me ask you, Prince of Persia is, I would probably say their best game they've done in what, 8 years at this point? Is that fair?
No, because I like Odyssey, so it would be
Okay.
6 years probably.
What year Odyssey come out?
2018.
Okay, 2018.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So Odyssey, Prince of Persia, potato there. But like, okay, so best game they've done in 6 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they did that with a much smaller team.
Yeah. The bigger the team, the bigger the team, the worse the game.
But I mean, just think about it like this. Like I don't want to come off across as like burying them like super hardcore, but I'm like, think about all these other studios that have way more, like the same amount of resources and what they've been putting out, the quality they've been putting out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They have, it's like that's something that a lot of people have actually criticized them for, and that's something that a lot of people have asked for Ubisoft to kind of like lean themselves more, because it's kind of like in the massive amount of studios that they have is where you get the blood goats that they've been getting, because like, oh, you have all these massive teams all over the world working in the same game, so you got to make a game as big, worthy of the amount of people working on that game. Is that making the games better? No, they aren't.
No, they're not. But it's also like, okay, so also I'm like, we're seeing $40 games like have hella success lately, right?
Yeah.
Like even before we got to Helldivers, I think Stray did pretty well, right?
Yeah, and you're talking the cat game, right, Stray?
Yeah, the little cat game, Stray.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, but that was an indie game, so yeah. But
Yeah,
if you want to like,
Cult of the Lamb did pretty well at that price point too, right?
It was cheaper. I thought Cult of the Lamb was cheaper. Huh?
I think it was $30, but
Yeah.
you know, like, what are you doing, fam? Like, what are you doing there that says like, I haven't seen, besides Prince of Persia, and I know like I liked Odyssey as well, but I don't think Odyssey like out of the last like let's say 8 years, I don't think Odyssey, there's a debate there that it might not even be a top 30 game that came out within that time frame.
Yeah, it was one of the better games of that year, but it was like still in the shadow of Red Dead, God of War, and Spider-Man. So it was like,
so it's not even a top 3 game in its own year. It's one of, so you're
but it was a top, but it was a top 5, but that's semantics.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like in the last 8 years, you had 2 games that like 2 of your best games probably won't even be in the top 50 games that were released in the video game sphere of things. Top 50, because I mean, throw in Nintendo games on that, right? And then throw in like PlayStation games, Xbox games, all that. You have your top 2 games aren't even in your top, or most probably wouldn't even consider in the top 50 in the last 8 years. So I'm like,
the one that would Far Cry 3 back in 2012, or even the Assassin's Creed 2, the model sequel of your second game is so much better than the first one because it built. So it was like, the weird thing about Ubisoft is that they got so big as a studio by having all these different things that they become comfortable becoming people's comfort food. They became comfortable becoming gaming's Burger King. If you know what I mean? Because it's like, because
that a good thing though.
That's the thing. Like for the people that buy them, is like, the numbers say otherwise. Like for us that like the games to push the medium and all that, they have not been that pocket since 2012. Because whether we like it or not, it's so funny. The formula that Ubisoft establishes the formula that a lot of Sony games use. We talked about it as like at least from a base design of open worlds, it's like Ubisoft set that template. That's what's so weird. It's like you know what it feels like? It's like they set the template in 2012, then they went, my job here is done. Let's just close from here on out, because it's like we're selling. I think that's exactly what happened there, because it's like there was a point that Ubisoft was like before Far Cry, after Far Cry, Far Cry 3. That's usually how I see it. Is like before Far Cry 3, they were a very creative company that did a lot of different unique games. After Far Cry 3, they were like, this formula works. Let's put it in everything. And what did that happen? They kept selling a lot of people, because I have talked with many people at games, like the Ubisoft formula is very how can I say it? It's just comfort food for so many people. It's like, you know what you're getting. Like for example, I know like for example, Far Cry 6, 74 Metacritic game, so it's 2,000,007's game. So many people were like, a lot of people were like, oh yeah, people get some reviews. Oh yeah, it's more Far Cry. What so many people say? Yeah, that's what I want.
Okay with that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. So it's like, I feel they really got into that groove of being like, yeah, let's just do games that a lot of people say like that's just kind of what they want, and because they keep selling, we'll do it. The thing is that Ubisoft is very reactive. When sales go down, that's when they change. Like the Assassin's Creed series, they kept annualizing that sucker since after 2009. Like every year a new one, every year a new one, every year a new one. Innovation started stalling with that franchise, but they kept selling, and they literally said, we'll keep doing them until you stop buying them. 2015 arrives, Syndicate arrives. It didn't sell because Unity was a disaster. So a lot of people are like, nah, the quality has now like taken a downswing, I'm out. Then the next game was better in quality because it worked, and it had a little bit few innovations, but it was like, it's all worse. So they were like, you know what? We had to stop.
But
and I
damn
think,
it, man, if you're just gonna copy and paste the same thing all over again, you don't need 50 studios to do that.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people are saying. When they were kind of like in dire straits financially, they were trying to sell. People didn't want to buy because they were like, we ain't buying you. Not if you have like 50 studios with how many people all over around the world that would then have to feed. So it's like, they're such a like large corporation that is like, the quality is not like reflected. That I do agree with you. Do people like their games? They do.
Yeah, and they're decent games. They're decent games. I'm more disappointed at the potential.
Yeah,
that's what I'm more disappointed about, and that's why I'm like.
That's why I want to see, like, for example, I would love to revisit this conversation when we get to Outlaws, because that was like the cream of the crop of the new mission statement. We've gone astray. We're cutting, like, we're like moving on from, like, because that's what's the funny thing is, like, Skull and Bones was a live service that was announced to be a live service like a few years before the new mission statement. That was like, we're going back to basics because we like falling on hard times, and that's when like Crew Motorfest kind of like was a better crew game than they had, but it was still kind of like still decent, but it was like upward trajectory. The Avatar game sold really well for them, weirdly. Even though like, and that was also kind of like a big split of like the people that bought it really like it. Reviewers were like, yeah, this is Far Cry still. That's why like it was in the 73, 74. But it's like, then Prince of Persia was like, oh, you're finally going back to your creative roots, at least, because there's some innovations to the Metroidvania genre they did in that game. So there's something there. Skull and Bones, remnant from the other time, yeah, take your L. Absolutely take your L on that one. It's like,
I also think like Prince of Persia, and this is no disrespect to a lot of people who love that game, is like Avatar and Prince of Persia ain't in the same league as IPs. I'm not even an Avatar fan, and I'm like,
no.
And people, I'm like, a greasy grandmama across the street knows what the Avatar is. Don't nobody under the age of 30 remember what Prince of Persia is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's what's happened. It's like Prince of Persia was the precursor to Assassin's Creed. Like the bones of Prince of Persia are all over the Assassin's Creed franchise. The Sands of Time trilogy or the PS2 were excellent. Funny enough, DNA of that game you see in Uncharted. It was that kind of game. So it was like imagine Ubisoft making that kind of game that then like you got Naughty Dog being like, a little bit of our DNA is gonna be extracted from the Prince of Persia series with the shimmying, like climbing and all that. That was from Prince of Persia. But it's like then Prince of Persia went so dormant. Like, of course, them bringing back, do something creative is like, that's why this game is not selling, because it's like, how do you expect to sell something that has been dormant for 14 years?
Yeah. Like hardcore people are going to care, and then people are going to check it out if it's a hot thing at the time. But like, other than that, no one's going to care. Like, yeah.
And I feel a lot of people would have cared even more if Prince of Persia was the only thing that came out in January. Because if you remember, January was always the month of one or two games. Maybe at the end.
Burgers, yeah.
Yeah, but not really Nothing Burgers. That's when Mass Effect 2 came out.
Yeah, so that's true, but that was 20 years ago.
Yeah, point, exactly. You know? And then Resident Evil 2 was also in January. So it was like, Resident Evil 7 was also in January. So it's like, I wouldn't say they were the Nothing Burgers, but it was like, they were the only game in town. The first, whatchamacallit, the Dying Light 1 in 2015 was like, found a success by being the only game in town in January. And it reviewed like, fairly well, like it was getting 8.5, so it was like yes, it's like at least it's something in January. If Prince of Persia, widely beloved by a lot of critics, had been like the only thing, and everyone was so starved with what's coming, I feel like Prince of Persia would have sold a little bit more because word of mouth would have picked up. You ain't selling in the same month that you got Infinite Wealth, you got Tekken 8, you got all this other stuff that are on top of having big names are like a level up in quality from where those franchises happen. So, but I also don't want to discredit that at the very least from Ubisoft. It's like, hey, you got at least a creative win. I hope you take the lesson from that as you keep leaning yourself.
Ubisoft, if you're listening, I got the juice for you. I got the magic formula here that'll sell your next big game, and you know, as long as your game isn't the same formulaic stuff it has been, because you don't need help with Far Cry and all that other stuff. Next time you want to go back to the well of your classics, or if you want to tell like a new IP, like make a like hire out a cheap company, maybe in Taiwan or Singapore or whatever you want to do.
They have studios there.
Yep, hire. You already got studios there. Tell your studio, like head of studio and everything like that. Scour the residential area. Hire an animation company. Make 6 episodes. 6 episodes of your upcoming IP, whatever you want to do. Like even if it's Splinter Cell, because guess what? These Fortnite playing 16-year-olds don't give a damn about no Splinter Cell. It's old heads like me and Alejandro and everybody upwards that cares about Splinter Cell. Splinter Cell is not going to sell super gangbusters outside of the people who like the generation that played it growing up. So if you come out with a new Splinter Cell game, make a 6-episode anime, just like Cyberpunk did, and put that go to Netflix. Say we got 6 episodes here. Put out season 1 and such like that. Advertise it pretty well. Then also there's this little game called Fortnite. You might have heard of it. Take your main character. Put that bad boy in Fortnite. Yeah. Make a trailer about it and then release your game. I bet you'll see some success.
Yeah. Be smart about your synergies, and also be smart about like the investments, and just innovate your formula. It's like they literally fired the guy that enforced the formula back in 2020 because he was like a perpetrator of sexual harassment also at that company. Sergey Gaskod was the dude. It's like it came like in the report by Jason Schreier. It's like he was the one that fell so in love with the Far Cry 3 formula, and then every idea got stamped out because it was like, oh yeah, how can you put it within this formula? And because game development can take so damn long, that's why we're still seeing so much like derivative stuff. Like the Avatar game, do you know when it was announced? 2016. When did it come out? Just last year. When the decisions were made to make it a Ubisoft game back under the regime of this dude. Prince of Persia.
It took that long.
Yeah, exactly. It's like there's like, again, we can have long conversations about like, do games really need to take this long to make? Yeah. Because it's like it shouldn't. So, but yeah, it's like I can't wait to revisit our Ubisoft conversation when Star Wars Outlaws comes out, and we'll see like how that game does, what it does different, like for Ubisoft, like what the quality level is, because at least from the demo they put out at the showcase, that was game of the show for many people. It was like, even like after Starfield, of course we laugh now because now we play Starfield, because a lot of people, when they did that demo Starfield at the showcase, they were like, oh yeah, this is the game to beat. And then the day after they did the Star Wars Outlaws, we're like, oh, okay, you're cooking something here. Yeah, it's like you're cooking here. So we'll see.
Let me ask you one last question on Helldivers, because I know that was our main conversation.
Yeah, circle it back to the Helldivers too.
Do you think that's going to have staying power for you? You personally, I'm not even like trying to take a dig at it or anything like that. Do you think it's going to have staying power, or do you think it's like a good weekend game? Well, like
it's going to have a staying power as long as my clan is still playing it. My clan's bossing right now. They're having a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun just kind of like shooting the shit with them, and like kind of like the hilarity of the nonsense that happens over our screw ups of like someone's gonna try to like bring in a nuclear bomb, throw it there because it's like we have a bunch of insects coming and crab the bomb bounced in and it's coming right at us and the bomb. So it's like there's just such level of hilarity that's just so perfect for the friend group that you have. So it's like, to me, it's like funny enough, I'm playing more Suicide Squad than I'm doing Helldivers 2, because Suicide Squad I can find the fun playing solo. With Helldivers 2, I'm finding more fun like goofing off with my friends, because we're kind of like all in on the joke, doing that stuff. And I feel like as long as Helldivers 2 remains creative in what I keep playing, that's still gonna be something that whenever I see people be like, let's play that, I'm gonna jump into that, because it's like, it's fun in 30-minute chunks, it's fun in 1 hour chunks, and they recently announced that they're gonna beef up their content plan, which I was talking with Travis from IGN. He said he's the live service guy, and he was, in his preview, he was worried about the staying power of this game because he didn't hear a solid live service plan of like, oh yeah, this is what the next year of content is. And that was kind of because they kind of approach it as, we try to make a fun game, let's see if people take to it, instead of us trying to invest into something that may not see the light of day. Kind of like, that's kind of like in the pocket I am with Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad, to their credit, they have an entire year planned out, 4 seasons, that they so blatantly planned it out, they cut their damn campaign for that, that now I'm like, I'm seeing those dwindling Steam numbers. I keep hearing at least the numbers on consoles are good, but it's like, that's still not encouraging. Will you even be able to see the planned content through? It's like, I feel at least Helldivers 2 was a little bit more, the developers were a little bit more honest about their approach. They wanted to see people like their game first before investing more time in it. Let's see if they invest on it fast. Depending on how much investment it has, if the next big multiplayer thing happens afterwards, then we'll see what the staying power has. But I know for sure, it's like, I have never seen a live service game in that pocket that is praised by how fun it is. That's kind of like the talk about it. You rarely hear that from so many.
Is this going to be like 2013 or 2023 had Diablo, I think, is the live service, like mega live service game. Is this like, but Diablo had a little bit of a good launch, but a little bit of stumble after the launch. Do you feel like it's going to be more of that, or do you feel like this is going to kind of have that staying power?
It has the advantage that this, like, for example, the big stumbles that happened with Diablo was that because it was an ARPG, Blizzard came in before the first season being like, oh yeah, all the stuff that you were having fun with, nerfed. There's nothing worse than invalidating the fun that people were having when you're a game with the builds that they spent time building towards, and then they nerf into the ground. You know, a game that already committed that mistake, Suicide Squad. In endgame content, the best builds is Diablo. It was the Diablo build, so it's like you're melting everything. They nerfed that because people were having too much fun and climbing their harder endgame content too fast. What does that do? Kill player morale, because like, I built towards this. It's like, that's Helldivers 2 doesn't have kind of like a ARPG, a power scale like that they could then come in and like piss off the fan base. Kind of like right now the only thing that they gotta like keep like growing is the server, kind of like the server load, because it's like they really underestimated like how this game was gonna take off for them. That says a lot, because it's like they were like really undershooting. They were really under promising, and I feel they hit that over delivery. So, and that's kind of like the irony. Fortnite Battle Royale undershot. It was like, that was not like they did it because it was like, oh yeah, or Save the World, like Tower Defense is not doing it. It's like, hey, we see PUBG is like doing a Battle Royale. We have the tech. We're gonna do this for fun. Now look where they are.
Yeah.
It's so funny, it's so funny. Anyone that builds their game towards wanting to be a thing never becomes a thing, and then the games that never want to become a thing become a thing. That's kind of like the irony of being in this, in kind of like this pocket, and why they should not do it. That's kind of that's kind of what I'm doing, because it's like, then always the people in the desire to try to be that always fail. The ones that are chasing the tail of the dragon. So
it'll be interesting to see how the staying power goes. I'm happy for y'all that y'all got another game to enjoy this year.
Yeah. To me, what's funny is that this makes me want to ease off on Sony a little bit, because I've been like really harsh on like the Sony kind of game. Like Helldivers being as good as it is has been like, I got my variety now. I'm not gonna be as harsh on your single player stuff. And again, like, I know I have played up how much I hate Spider-Man 2, but it's more like I did find myself like really pissed that my experience was what it was. I'm like looking forward to March 7th, that patch be the silver bullet that then lets me experience that game as clean as the people that swear to me the review period of that game was not as buggy. I heard people that I trust that tell me that, and I'm like, I can only speak from my experience, man. It's like, I have the pictures, I have the videos of it bugging out, and I'm kind of like, but now like, okay, Sony, you're playing another different stuff, and like, I'm gonna lay off the hate a little bit right now. But
heals all the wounds, and
exactly, yeah. And I let that heal with Ragnarok, with how much I love Valhalla. So And now, Sebastion, hopefully you have been saving your spies, because let's talk about Xbox. Press X for some news.
Let's go.
So, Sebastion, 2 weeks ago, the internet was on fire.
Why is that?
We had already been hearing that, oh yeah, Hi-Fi Rush and Sea of Thieves maybe like crossing over the pond to the other consoles. A lot of people were like, ooh, that seems like a bad plan. That seems like, ooh, it's like, that feels like a slippery slope, especially if it's Hi-Fi Rush. Your only big success, like, in PR
For a long time,
last year, especially like in the eve of like Starfield and Redfall and all that, is like the big, like, the crowning achievement of Xbox last year was their small shadow drop game. So now they're trying to sell it somewhere else. Then there's Sea of Thieves. Oh yeah, this long already established like live service game that has been pretty successful for them after like stumbling blocks, but they really have been building it up. It's like that's one of the most played games on the Xbox ecosystem. It's 6 years old. It's live service. They have talked about the idea of like maybe live service are the ones that we're gonna put everywhere, because the best thing that keeps these things alive is as many players as possible can like keep playing, because then that keeps it alive. So it's like, yeah, it's been 6 years. It possibly has done on Xbox all it can do. Let's try to grow that pie. Okay. Then suddenly someone reported Starfield may migrating. Then someone reported Indiana Jones may be migrating. Then someone was like, Gears of War may be migrating. Then they were like, is everything like jumping ship? What the frick is happening here? Yeah. And then they were like, Phil Spencer puts out a tweet. We hear you. We have a business update that we wanna tell you. It's gonna come next week, and then we arrive to this week. It's be like, oh yeah, that update is gonna be a podcast for the official Xbox podcast. It's gonna come all the way to Thursday. The poor Xbox fan base had to be left simmering in pig shit for like too long, with the idea that their console may be like going the way of Sega, that competition was just gonna die. What's going to happen to the Xbox platform? Are they giving up after all the investments they've been doing? And today we got the 22-minute podcast where they got to tell us a few things. Before we go into some of the key elements, what do you think of that 22-minute podcast? Be as spicy as you want to be. Have the floor.
Okay, be as spicy as I want to be. Yeah. I don't really give a damn about this podcast.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm being honest, I don't give a damn. I'm like, that's crazy, because I like all the people who were there, you know, like Sarah Bontina, Mimi, and Phil Spencer. Matt,
you have a picture with Phil Spencer.
Yeah, I do. He's a cool guy, but like, I'm like, I don't give a damn about any of this, like, because it feels like it still feels defeatist. It still feels like you said something, but you didn't really say very much. I'm like, you said like, hey, you hinted at games, but you didn't put your chest out and say, yeah, we're going forward with these 4 games. I'm like, just say the damn games, man. Yeah. I'm like,
is there another company that has a much more frustrating PR than them?
No.
Every time they speak, holy crap. I'm like, it's word salad after word salad after word salad after word salad. They confirm the fears for many. There's games that are coming now to the other platforms, but don't worry. Xbox is still kind of like the main platform. We're gonna like double down on hardware, but we really think that the growth is not just on games that are gonna remain exclusive. So we can never say never about some games like migrating over and kind of like where so it's like it felt like 22, right? It was like they were talking in circles for like 22 minutes, then confirmed a few things, but then kind of like backtracked on another, and it's like I still feel very confused what their goal is. I really do. It's like the Phil Spencer era of Xbox. Obviously, I always have to give him credit. It's like without Phil Spencer, there wouldn't be an Xbox. He took over the Xbox One when it was like destroyed after the horrible messaging in 2013, and then he tried to like move it around, unbundle the Kinect, unbundle Windows 8 out of it, cut the price, try to get some games going at the very least, and then get the Xbox One X. Be like, because they lost the power edge with the Xbox One against the PS4, and the Xbox has always been like the console that was like the most powerful out of all of them. So he did all that. Under him, no games have successfully been nurtured. it's perpetual promises. Like, they have had all these investments. You kind of even mentioned it. It's like, with all the money they had, with everything they have bought, they could be the kings of the industry. But it's like they don't have the
easily.
Yeah, but they don't have like the dev acumen. And I felt like these business update that we got was kind of like an exemplification of that, because whether they like it or not, they open Pandora's box today. And even then, why do it that way? We can start with like the first with the first of these headlines. Thanks over at BGC. This was from Andy Robinson. Xbox confirms it's bringing 4 games to rival platforms. Microsoft has confirmed that 4 unnamed Xbox exclusives will be released on other console platforms such as PlayStation 5 or Nintendo Switch. According to The Verge sources, corroborated by Video Games Chronicle, these games will be Pentiment, Hi-Fi Rush, Sea of Thieves, and Grounded. The news was announced as part of a new podcast designed to give an update on plans for the Xbox business going forward, in which gaming boss Phil Spencer claimed the decision has been made to ensure the long-term health of Xbox. In the podcast, Spencer said that Starfield and Indiana Jones, titles previously reported to be in consideration for PlayStation 5, would not be going multi-platform. However, in a separate interview with The Verge, the exec said he wouldn't rule out the possibility for these titles to arrive on PS5 in the future. I don't think we should, as an industry, ever rule out a game going to any other platform, he said. He also claimed the 4 unnamed releases...
Yeah. I'm like, you ain't getting Smash Brothers?
Yeah.
You can rule that out? I'm like, you ain't getting Mario Party? What the
fuck
are you talking about, dog?
Yeah. Yeah. He also claimed the 4 unnamed releases did not represent a change to our fundamental exclusivity strategy, and there was no promise beyond those titles coming to rival platforms. To ensure long-term success for both Xbox and the industry as a whole, we must continue to evolve, Xbox said in a statement. Today we announced that we will expand the communities we reach. We're currently in the process of bringing 4 Xbox games to other platforms. These are titles which have been available to Xbox players for at least a year, including hidden gems that deserve to be experienced more widely, and live service games whose communities will benefit from welcoming even more players. We will share more details on these titles soon. It continued, by bringing these games to more players, we not only expand the reach and impact of those titles, but this will allow us to invest in either future versions of these games or elsewhere in our first-party portfolio. There is no fundamental change to our approach on exclusivity.
Yeah, it is. Shit.
Yeah, it is.
You just said that 4 games are going to be going to another console. I'm like, hell, that's a change.
It is a change. It's like you open Pandora's box, and I want to jump ahead to another to kind of like another bullet point of this that kind of adds to like the defeatist nature of this. This is a story by Chris Collin over at BGC. He says like, Phil Spencer wants Sony and Nintendo games on Xbox, but says he doesn't expect it. In an interview for journalist Stephen Totillo's GameFile newsletter, Spencer said the decision to bring 4 Xbox games to other consoles wasn't intended to make its rivals follow suit. This is not for me like some kind of bartering system, Spencer explained. We're doing it for the better of Xbox's business. Despite this, Spencer said he would of course welcome other console games on Xbox and noted that it would be beneficial for multiplayer games in particular, where building a large online community is important for a game's lifespan. I will say, when I look at a game like Helldivers 2, and it's a great game, kudos to the team shipping on PC and PlayStation, I'm not exactly sure who it helps in the industry by not being on Xbox, he said. If you try to twist yourself to say like somehow that benefited somebody somewhere, but I get it. There's a legacy in console gaming that we're going to benefit by shipping games and not putting them on other places. We do the same thing. Spencer also noted that Helldivers 2, which Sony released on PlayStation and PC on the same day, is doing well on the latter. I will say shipping more games in more places and making them more accessible to more people is a good part of the gaming business, he said. Earlier this week, Sony president and PlayStation chairman Hiroki Totoki said he wants the company to be aggressive when it comes to improving its gaming division's profit margins, which he says can partly be achieved with a greater focus on bringing first-party games to PC. During an investors call, Totoki made it clear that he feels releasing first-party games multi-platform will be the way forward, though he did then appear to clarify that he was only referring to PC when he said this. So, yeah, we're gonna go put our games in our rival systems. Yeah, but yeah, it's like, I would love for them to put it in ours, but it's like, it doesn't matter.
Ain't no chance in hell they ain't gonna do that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm like, who would buy a Switch if you, like, who would legitimately buy a Switch if you can play all the Switch first party games in 60 FPS to 120 FPS on a PlayStation 5 or Steam Deck or Xbox? I'm like, ain't nobody doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like it's just so funny. Be like, it kind of tells you I think that says a lot about where the Xbox business is in. It's like this is clearly still a third place move. It's like Nintendo and PlayStation don't need to do this. PlayStation right now, obviously, by them putting stuff on PC that they said that they were putting on, that they announced back in 2022, kind of like I was mentioning, Helldivers 2 was under the pocket that Herman Hall said, like, if there's a game that's going live service, that's going to 2 platforms. So and so they said that, they made it clear, they were not being like wishy-washy about it. It's like, if I have to give PlayStation at least some credit compared to Xbox, PlayStation makes it clear what they're doing. You may not like it, but at least you're clear cut. With Xbox, it's word salads and defeatist attitudes all the time. But it's like, it's got this kind of, it's like, it's like, you don't expect like Nintendo to put their Mario game on Xbox. They don't need to, because they are selling so well on their own system without any need to having to expand their region. And Xbox just remains still wanting to give something to everyone, but having such a weak market position that they cannot get anything back. Isn't that weird? And what does that do? It's like, it sets the cadence of like, if you're on PlayStation, then you start getting these games from Xbox. It's like, oh yeah, they have set some sort of precedence. We have already gotten a few of them, like Cuphead. That was funded by Xbox. That's already on PlayStation now. That made it to Switch first. The Ori games made it to Switch. So it's like, and then Microsoft, like Phil Spencer even says like, in the few times that we have put like these games on our system, I don't want to create that expectation that everything is coming over.
You can create the expectation that it's not, though.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's like your actions are completely in opposite of what your desires are. I'll just say that. It's like, and here's something that the quote missed from like the podcast when they were mentioning that the 4 games that they were gonna put out, like going to other platforms, they also mentioned for now.
Yeah.
So, and then like that Steven Totillo, like they interview with The Verge saying that it's like, yeah, it's like yeah, right now Starfield and Indiana Jones are like exclusive for now, but we'll see. So it's like, again, like the wishy-washiness of putting the Xbox brand in such a middle, and kind of like in such a middle razor's edge tightrope of, you don't want to get out the console business, you want to still be competing, but it's like the moves that you're making are still slightly undermining you, and no matter what, you have opened Pandora's box now. It's like there's no closing it. Every game you put out comes with an asterisk, because you never know. You already know that the Xbox is not like the number one system. If they were number one, they would never do these moves.
No, for sure not.
They would never do these moves. Like even back in 2016, when that's when Xbox and PC became a thing. Was like even back then, I thought that was kind of like the beginning of the end, because they really undervalued that. Why did you need an Xbox? Because it's like you can get everything on PC. Obviously, they're a business, and it's all about, because more players are kind of coming in. But the thing is that they have now trying to appease so many that they don't get to appease the core.
No, I'm like, damn it, man, you're not Steam.
Yeah.
You ain't Steam, man. Steam can do this. They appeal to everybody because of, like, they're the one-stop shop for PC. Like, you are a console. Like, I think one of the big takeaways for me, I'm like, regardless of what they said, is the mannerisms of what you say. It counts as well. I'm like, you came out, you didn't say very much of anything. You said the same things that we've been hearing for weeks, except you said, hey, like, some of our core games aren't going to the other platforms, but these 4 are. You didn't shut the door on anything. You didn't rebut anything. You didn't like say, hey, this is 100% like dedicated to the direction we're going in. You just basically said, hey, everybody, this is the way it is. Kind of like, be okay with it, please. Can you be okay with it? Yeah, we need your sympathy. It felt like a damn funeral, man. I'm like, that's what it felt like. It felt like a somber mood type of thing. I'm like, this was your chance to rally the troops, rally the damn troops. I'm like, you don't go at you're a football game. You're a football team. You were losing at halftime by 30 points and such as that. You're a coach. This was your chance to rally the team and say, like, hey, rally everyone behind Xbox and say, hey, yeah, man, we took our bruises, took our lumps, but we are about to fight. This is our game plan going forward. Whether that be like stuff we wanted to hear, like, hey, everything you heard was a lie. We're not releasing shit. We're going 10 toes down. Guess what? We're coming out with these exclusives. And guess what? This game is now day 1 on Game Pass. Close your eyes, everyone. Diablo 4 is available now. Like, that would have been like, a dream scenario for Xbox fans. Or you could have went the other way and said like, yeah, what you hear is true. We're releasing all of our games. You know, all of our most of our games are going to, as many as we possibly can without pissing y'all off, are going to be, you know, multi-platform. As many as we can are going to be multi-platform. You know, that's the way we're going to do it going forward. Have a great day.
Yeah.
Regardless of whichever direction you wanted to go with, I just want you to say it with your damn chest.
Yeah.
Say it with your chest.
Because
say it loud, say it proud. Come on.
Because even then, like, even things that you would think would be like them saying like things in their with their damn chest doesn't feel like that. Another headline: Xbox says its console will remain the flagship experience and the only place for Game Pass. As part of his statement on the future of the Xbox business, also a story by Chris Collin from BBC, an article in the Xbox blog states that Xbox consoles will continue to provide a flagship experience for players. It also notes that Game Pass will continue to be only available on Xbox platforms, essentially shooting down suggestions that it may come to PlayStation or Nintendo systems in the future. The statement also appears to dismiss concerns that that players' Xbox libraries will be shut down in the future, saying the company's commitment to game preservation is unwavering. Xbox players should have confidence in building your digital library in the Xbox ecosystem, it says. We will continue to reward that with the most robust player-friendly experiences, including backwards compatibility, cross-play, cross-save progression, convenient cloud gaming, and more. During a supporting podcast, Xbox President Sarah Bond implied that more hardware was in the works. There's more exciting stuff coming out in hardware that we're going to share this holiday, she said, and we're also invested in the next generation roadmap. And what we're really focusing on there is delivering the largest technical leap you will have ever seen in a hardware generation, which makes it better for players and better for creators and the visions that they're building. In his blog article, Xbox makes the following promises to its players. The biggest games in the world will be on Xbox. Our games will come to Game Pass day one, a robust and innovative multi-year hardware roadmap. Compatibility with your library is a priority, inclusive of crossplay, cross-save, and robust cloud features, and Xbox will continue to help game creators find the biggest audience possible.
The biggest games in the world? Hell, you ain't even brought the biggest games in the world yet. I'm like, you ain't brought Ghost of Tsushima, you ain't brought Last of Us, you ain't got Mario. I'm like, you ain't got Zelda, you ain't brought the biggest games. You brought some of them. But don't say you brought the biggest games in the world.
Yeah, no, you have bought them. Yeah, so you have bought it. So that's what's so fun. It's like, no, don't worry. It's like, Xbox will be the premier place for this. We're gonna have more hardware. We're gonna have like the biggest leap ever, like in our next console. So it's like, do you remember when they were saying that the Xbox Series X was the most powerful console ever made, and they doubled down on that when the PS5 revealed its specs and all that? Has that played out? Have they been puffing their chest with it?
No, no one cares. No one cares.
And have their games proven that? Like, have the multi-platform games that are on Xbox proven that they're so significantly better than the weaker hardware of the PS5? Not even close. The games are like literally nigh on identical, and the PS5 has less hardware in it than the Xbox. So it's like, all this I talk about, like all this hardware and all that, is like this comes off as like, please just don't leave us, don't worry, don't you worry. It's like, you'll still be like our focus, you'll still like have the best experience here, but it's like, you say that, but it's like that, but then we're like, no, but we're also gonna put games in other platforms. We're all about Xbox is gonna be like in every single screen, because it's like gaming should be like bigger and all that. It's like unfortunately, I feel Xbox is caught in between a rock and a hard place of the greater Microsoft that's all about that. Microsoft, like Windows, is damn everywhere. It's in freaking Apple also. That's kind of like their mindset. It's like, if it almost feels like what we want Xbox to be, kind of like as a real console competitor to like the other two big console competitors, is kind of like at odds with the with like what the mandate is for the greater Microsoft under Satya Nadella of him wanting to be almost everywhere. That this almost feels like a weird middle spot compromise that I don't feel will satisfy anyone.
No, the only people this will satisfy is the people who who have to be political about this, who really have to be like, and I'm not even gonna name names, but the people who want to get like the Xbox people on their shows so they can be political about it. But I'm like, none of this feels good. I'm like, none of this today feels right. And you and I are both rooting for Xbox. We want Xbox to be the best it can be.
Yeah, I wouldn't have bought a Series X if I didn't think otherwise. Like
we both bought both of these consoles like a fool right
now. I have the X and the S.
Same here. I'm like, we both bought both of these consoles right now, and they got a damn thing to show for it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
the only thing that's still at the very least as of right now that sorta, kinda still gives me like calmness is the fact that they didn't walk back day one Game Pass first party, because I was like,
I didn't even know that was on the table.
Yeah, it's like
I didn't think that was realistically going to be on the table.
Yeah, I know there has been a lot of talk about like what the sustainability of Game Pass has been, and that's kind of what I want to segue us into something that was like thrown randomly by Sarah Bond in like the podcast. So, Xbox Game Pass now has 34 million fully paid subscribers. The number was briefly was mentioned briefly during an announcement that Diablo 4 will be the first Activision Blizzard game coming to Game Pass, with Xbox President Sarah Bond noting that now the 34 million Game Pass members can all enjoy the fantastic experience of Diablo 4. However, in an interview for journalist Stephen Totilo's GameFall newsletter, Xbox head Phil Spencer elaborated more on the figure, noting that it isn't simply counting players on free trials or other promotional deals. That's fully paid, Spencer explained. So those are not promotional players. Those are people fully paid subs. Totilo then asked Spencer if the numbers were being cooked somewhat by last year's rebranding of Xbox Live Gold to Xbox Game Pass Core, essentially turning all Xbox Gold subscribers into Game Pass subscribers. Spencer replied that the numbers of players who had Xbox Live Gold but not Game Pass and could now be added to the count was a pretty small number, and that the growth in subscriber numbers can be attributed more to players on PC and the cloud. When there's a fixed number of console players on the planet, you're not going to grow Game Pass forever by shipping just on consoles, explained. So we're seeing really significant growth on PC, which is great, and cloud. So here's also a funny stat. Let me see if I can find the picture that I took, because I saw it and I was like, oh, okay, that's actually pretty damning if I'm actually being honest. So 34 million Game Pass subscribers, they said. This was definitely not the last time they mentioned numbers. 25 million, or when they announced Activision Blizzard the acquisition in 2022.
Okay.
Leaked documents have mentioned that there were like 11 million gold members, and like 23 Game Pass like Ultimate members. Add that, make the math.
The math ain't mathing, huh?
The math ain't mathing. Game Pass is not growing. It's like they had said at the internal documents that they were going through Discovery and their whole damn trial and tribulations. We went with the Activision Blizzard thing. They had said that they wanted to be at 100 million subscribers by 2027. We're in 2024. You're only at 34 million after lumping the people that were paying gold that you rebranded it into one, just to kind of like cook your numbers up. Growth has not been there. Yeah, you ain't gonna make it. The fact that you have barely grown, it's not a really good size. Like, what is this? And they have made Game Pass kind of like the main
platform now.
The main platform of like how you consume games in their platform. Is like, why would you ever buy a game there? Because you have trained everyone to be like, yeah, just pay for Game Pass. And at a certain point, like the sustainability of that service like comes into focus, because it's like, if this has really grown, I should have heard 40 million at least, or at least 45 million. 2 years after I heard 25 million. If you were like lumping all these numbers in. If you're just lumping Game Pass, like the core numbers together as fully paid subscribers, instead of just like remember when Game Pass was $1 for 3 months?
Yeah.
They were like trying to like goose up those numbers, be like, nah, just like, here, have it for $1. Have it, give it a try, have it for $1. It's like, is there a future for like they say they're committing. They're totally saying they're committing. The fact is, last year the Xbox console sold less than the previous years did compared to its competitors. 4 years into their life cycle. It's like, obviously that they're committed. That's what we see all this wishy-washy. It's like the maths ain't mathing. The moves that don't make sense because the math ain't mathing. But they're trying to assuage the player base and be like, don't worry, things are still good. You're still gonna keep getting that stuff. Don't worry about like investing here. Like, there's something I was talking with Eric, one of the guys that I play with at Season Gaming. He writes also there. He's a very big physical games collector. He still likes buying discs and all that.
Poor guy.
Poor guy. One thing was not mentioned a single time during this whole thing. After we had heard after the layoffs happened over at Xbox, where they laid off 1,900 people, on top of the 10,000 they had already laid off the year before, that they had canned their physical production team. So it's like they're like going down the path of least options, trying to be like, we're gonna be like in every different screen possible. I know there were like rumors saying that because they were mentioning that there were gonna be more hardware announcements later on this year. There's rumors that they're gonna get into the portable, official portable hardware business. So kind of like,
is that appealing for you?
Price will determine. Price determine. So it's like
they're about to get you a console, huh?
Yeah.
The first two wasn't enough.
I know. So it's like, what is the strategy? Like the strategy is like unfocused and scattered, and contradictory, and like full of a lot of asterisks, in a way that you don't see that from the other ones. Yes, there's a lot we can talk about Sony, and we can read a few of the headlines. Just we heard about Sony here real quick. So this came also from BGC. So Sony expects their PS5 sales to decline because there's no existing major franchise titles that are gonna be released this next fiscal year that ends in April 2025. The new chairman, Hiroki Totoki from PlayStation, said that the studios need to improve when it comes to business. And kind of like what he was mentioning was like, yes, like they are really passionate developers. They like making the kind of like the best work that they can. But the math ain't mathing. And they kind of have to like, the math ain't mathing. And they kind of have to like keep their creativity in check to like balance up the books a little bit. With the announcement that the PS5 sales have basically peaked this last year, and that we're entering what's called the later half of the life cycle of the console. It's like Sony's shares have fallen the most in 2 years after they say that their PS5 growth has likely peaked. So investors are like, oh, so this is the best it's gonna get, we're bouncing. Sony wants to improve PlayStation profit margins with more aggressive PC release strategy. Obviously, interesting to hear that after seeing like probably the numbers they saw with PC with what's happening with Helldivers 2. It's like you hear that as like, yeah, it's like Sony is still doing great, but at least we know where they stand a little bit. We also, thanks to the unfortunate leaks from Insomniac, we learn about the unsustainability of the model that they're pursuing. And now we got a new CEO, an interim CEO that is also the company's CFO. That's all about the bean counting. Be like he said during the financial calls, he went and visited every studio to kind of check on the projects and kind of let them know about like, hey, yeah, the ballooning development costs is like we gotta find a ways to
shore that up.
Shore that up, because it's like I don't want you to stop making your games, but the math gotta math. So there were a few news that came out of Sony this week, kind of like, at least from like reporters, like Jeff Graf mentioned that he had probably heard in the grapevine that Sony could release a new Astrobot game this year. We don't know if it's gonna be a VR only, if it's gonna be like a follow up to Playroom. So it's like, yeah, they said that no major franchises. So when they were mentioning that there's not gonna be major franchise before April 2025, that was like a sequel to like a big game that already came out. So that didn't include Concord, which is what the only first party game that we know that's announced is coming this year. It's in my it's in my fantasy draft.
You draft it?
Yeah, I grabbed Concord on that one.
You did.
Yeah, I was the one that grabbed Concord there. So it's like, yeah, and that PlayStation filed a trademark for Intergalactic the Heretic Prophet, which is so funny because you read those three terms, that sounds like Halo.
That does.
Yeah. It also makes me wonder, is this Santa Monica's game? Because I know Santa Monica is doing a sci-fi game by Cory Barlog. Are they trademarking it because that's due soon? We don't know.
I feel like it could be.
Yeah, it could be, because Cory's been cooking that game since God of War 2018. He didn't work on Ragnarok. He only oversaw the creative direction, but gave it to director Eric Williams to kind of like follow it. But he was like, yeah, I'm kind of seeing it more from the outside because I'm doing something else. So it's like, could that be their game? Who knows? But it's like a lot of people are dooming and glooming a lot of Sony at the same time. But it's like, it's funny that they also have a similar strategy of trying to like pursue more like growth over first party, but it's a little bit more clear than what's happening over on Xbox. That is like, we know they slowly want to put their games on PC also. They have been doing it, obviously with different timetables. Single player stuff comes 2 years later. Horizon Forbidden West on PC is coming out in March. Like the live service stuff, day and date. Why? Because it's multiplayer. They gotta grow that stuff. They don't speak much, but at least the direction is clear over on the PlayStation side. And right now, the only concern there is like what we learn about. Can they still will the building not catch on fire with how much smoke there is, with how much these games are costing to make? The games that we like to make. That's like the real concern. That's over like on the PlayStation side, like the sustainability of like the business model that they're pursuing. They have not like changed their business model. They're still pursuing the business model that they found on PS3. It's just a model that's gotten more expensive. But at the very least, like compare that to the Microsoft strategy, 1,000,001 strategies. Is that which one's the better strategy?
Yeah, well, I mean, one of these is selling consoles, and one of them isn't.
Exactly, yeah. So it's like, and right now, like what Sony, the only thing that Sony needs to do is like that the fact that they're selling this many consoles also come with great profit. This wasn't here in the headlines, but the fact that they sold, they're on track to sell 21 million consoles this fiscal year, which is nuts. That's for like just one fiscal year. That they were able to move that many on a year they barely had anything. If you really want to be pedantic with just first party matters, only Spider-Man released. Because then the other first party stuff with PSVR 2, who cares about PSVR 2? So it's like
I sure as hell don't.
Exactly. But what did they do? They aligned themselves with Hogwarts Legacy, the best selling game of that year. The next big entry in the Final Fantasy series was exclusive to them. That was like a big pop for them in June. Obviously, you're not as fond of that game as I am with me, but that was like a big game
but that's
for them.
Smart.
Yeah. Exactly, but because it's like historical. Like, why is Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth like exclusive? Because like Final Fantasy VII and PlayStation 1 made the PlayStation, so it's like they have been like smartly aligning themselves to stuff that at least like excites the people that associate themselves with that console. Cost is like the big worry where they are, like where they currently are, and. Great news that Spider-Man 2 sold the 10 million units.
Yeah.
When you know how much it costs and how much of that money has to go to Disney because of the licensing fees.
That sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. With how much that game costs. So it's like that's kind of like the monkey paw of them doing a licensed game at that quality that the license can be so expensive. That's why the Avengers game lost so much money. It's ironic that a lot of people are saying that the Suicide Squad game, even though it's not doing many numbers, may do more money for WB than Avengers did for Square Enix, because they didn't have to license anything. That was in-house.
Yeah.
Yeah, so why did Ragnarok did make a profit compared to Spider-Man with similar numbers, maybe 1 million more? In-house production, no licenses. So that's kind of like the weird part about the higher numbers where Sony is at right now, because any other, like, looking at a basic stuff that you hear, oh yeah, Spider-Man sold 10 million, they're doing great, they're selling stuff, look at that console, they're selling a bunch of stuff. It almost feels like here's where the balances are, instead of the balances being like here, oh yeah, more money should be more profit, but it's like, no, the net income we're getting is like, it's not accepting how much it's costing us to make this stuff. So it's like, it's interesting where both of these console manufacturers are, and Sony kind of has the advantage that because they're in the lead right now, or the perceptive lead, because Nintendo's technically the one in the lead. It's
still profitable, but not as profitable as they want it to be, right?
Yeah, but they lost a lot of profit. That's what's so funny. It's like this was the year they sold the most consoles where they made the least profit.
Mm-hmm. Because that's $700 million, but it only cost $200 to make, and then advertisements was like 50, right? So
for which ones? For Spider-Man?
Yeah, for Spider-Man.
No, for Spider-Man, the dev and marketing was $385 million.
Okay, so almost 400.
Yeah.
So that's 700, almost my 400.
Yeah.
That's still 300 million.
So
right?
they recouped dev costs, and then they have to pay the exorbitant license. So kind of like right now, it's like. To hit profit just on Spider-Man is not in a good shape. But then it's more like just profit in general for the entire company. It's like they have sold this many consoles, but they still, like, with all the debt costs of them putting money to make, because that a lot of Sony put money in Final Fantasy 16 as an exclusive. The PSVR 2 business that didn't do much business. That being like the only first party release. It's like, it's still wild to think that this is not gonna be Sony's most financially successful year probably ever because of inflation, costs, all of that.
Yeah.
And that to me, and that's why to me that gets scary, because I'm like, probably the thing that we talked about is like, you love Spider-Man 2. I have my reservations for my experience that I have with that game, but looking at it holistically, objectively, is that a $385 million game? Is that budget in the screen? Is like, one would think it should have been cheaper, right? They built already one island. They only need to build the other half and just clean it up. It's like, one would think that they should get easy, like the expenses should have been at the beginning because you built the city. It didn't make sense that it cost that much. So
yeah, I'm not seeing where the money went myself. Yeah. It feels like if there was a story about embezzlement that came out, like it would make a lot more sense.
And you know what makes that what made more sense? Like, Secret Invasion, the TV show, cost $212 million to make.
Just absolutely stupid.
So, are Disney laundering money?
Yeah, I'm not gonna say that, but yeah,
because that's the thing. Like, I see Secret Invasion, and that ain't a $212 million budget production. I tell you, like, no, sure so that's why like it makes sense. Like, I know Disney has been really irresponsible in the way that they have been spending money, to the point that now Bob Iger has like scaled them back so much that there's only one MCU movie this year, and that's kind of like from their Fox.
It's a good looking one.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it got me back. I saw the trailer. I was like, you know what? It's like I've been like shit talking the MCU over this past year and a half. That was my Keanu Baba Yaga. Yeah, I think I'm back with this one. But it's like, it did look good. Yeah. Deadpool movies were never super expensive either. That was kind of what made them so successful. That they made them on the cheap, and they were so successful because a lot of people really liked them and bought them. So it's like, I know there's like belt tightening happening. So it wouldn't surprise me that the reason why Spider-Man 2 cost so much was the Disney factor. It wouldn't surprise me. And that to me is why I would hope that I'm not gonna see budgets explode, because God of War Ragnarok was $200 million. Shuhei Yoshida admitted that in like an interview. So it's like, yeah, a little expensive, but it's like they made its money back, and that's an in-house production. That they made it back like fast. Is why God of War is like so important for them. But them, like with Spider-Man, like spending that much, the money that they had to give away.
It feels crazy.
It just feels crazy, especially for the game that we're not sitting here and saying like Spider-Man 2 has like the greatest visuals that you can get on the PlayStation 5. It's like it is the absolute cream of the crop, like where every penny is like seen on the screen. There are moments, there are moments they do. Sandman, the night scenes where you see the black suit, there are moments where that thing's a looker, but it's like, it's not like, I told you the joke, right? It was like when I was trying to show my dad Spider-Man, because he had seen me play Spider-Man 2018 before. Mm-hmm. The first thing he said during the classroom was like, what is with these faces? He literally said that, what is with these hideous faces? And then I started swinging, and he literally said, oh yeah, it's kind of like the other one. And he stood up and left. I was like, I was gonna show him the Sandman part, like at least it's like, so even him that is like more layman, he was like, he wasn't that impressed, like at least so I was like, then it makes me go down that rabbit hole. It's like, yeah, 385 million production. I'm like, oh no, it's like, so. And it's not like he was a complete. He saw me play a lot of Spider-Man 20. I remember back then he was like, gosh, this looks really great, and I was like, there's better looking games, but yeah, sure. That's kind of what I thought when he told me that. It was like, because God of War was this year, Red Dead was coming soon. I had already seen what Red Dead 2 looked like, so I was like, I know what a beautiful game looks like. But he was impressed with that. But it was so funny, he wasn't impressed with that. Yet somehow, when he was looking at cutscene of Suicide Squad, he was like, that looks really great. And then he saw all the UI nonsense. He was like, this is really noisy. Is there any superhero game happening? So that was just so funny. But yeah, it's like, Sony's sort of doing well, but I worry for them a little bit, because I also worry specifically what you had mentioned, or why you're scared over Helldivers 2's success, because you can kind of see the slippery slope of that. I still remain hopeful that what happened with Naughty Dog is kind of like a good sign that that's kind of like the road, but they gotta tighten the belt. It's like, I feel they can make games cheaper. I don't feel that they should sacrifice. I feel like graphics had gotten so good by the end of the PS4. If they can at least just stay there, because it's still so wide above what everyone else is doing, they can remain kind of there and maybe find ways to like maybe cut costs to still be able to do this game. I was like, you don't need Peach Fuzz. You don't need wrinkles in the faces that are only gonna be seen in photo mode when you're zooming in into a character. It's like, you don't need that. It's like, that's just vanity, in my opinion. Yeah, to me, that's just vanity, in my opinion, of like doing that kind of detail, because like, does it really add anything other than a tiny little detail that's like so insignificant compared to like the game that you're playing, and maybe like how much it costs you that at a certain point, like if economy eventually gets bad and you're like in a bad place, will you still be able to make this kind of game? That's my worry.
Let me. I go back and forth on the graphics thing, especially on like image fidelity, because like I played a smaller game this past year, you know, like Fort Solis, and it's a gorgeous looking game that is, even though it's not a AAA budget game, it's like they still captured a lot of amazing details, but they did it on a smaller budget, and the game is smaller. It's like a 4 to 5 hour
4 or 5 hour game, huh?
Yeah, not big at all. But my point, and the reason why I bring this up, is because like I think image capturing and mocap and stuff like that, like I've been to conventions where they showed mocap and they showed it at a very cheap rate. You know, like it's so cheap, as a matter of fact, that I can't even afford a mocap suit at this point. You know, like, and a mocap rig. So I'm like, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, I think we need to rethink the way we do things more so than it is more so like, hey, let's
stop doing this. Let's stop doing these games.
Maybe everyone take a beat and just say like, hey, let's come up with a different way of doing this. You know, like, and because I feel like now we've gotten so much, hey, let's do this fast, let's do this like as soon as possible, and this is the way we have to do it. To the point to where I'm like, we bottle capped ourselves in, you know?
Yeah. I'm like, especially if we want to like circle back to the Sony of it all, I feel like they just spent so much because they thought they could. And again, a lot of like Spider-Man 2 was built under Jim Ryan. I believe it at the bottom of my heart, the way he was seeing it is like, let's just keep pumping more money into these things because the live service stuff that we're planning are gonna like cover the cost. Oh, what is that? A bunch of those were canceled. A bunch of those were delayed. The one from Naughty Dog is not gonna happen. So it's like it makes me wonder. That's kind of what happened, because it's like that's the thing that makes me excited, seeing like now the people like in the bottom, like in the more middle tier, find ways to make games look great at a cheap price. And I would love for Sony to understand that instead of spending more, they have to spend smart. There is like and that's something that Sean Layden, previous president, gave us a warning sign on his way out. He saw like, he was like, oh, okay. It's like, yeah, I oversaw the PS4 generation, successful generation, all that. Is like, kind of scared where the cost is going, because it's like game development is getting too long. It's like some of these games are like taking too long to make. And he said that he was expecting the live service pivot to happen for Sony regardless, because they knew that if their games at the quality that they were making were taking as long as they were doing, it's like Sony was going to need something in the in-between. That's kind of why they wanted to invest in this. The problem was that they invested in the wrong way of wanting to invest so much on them and putting some of those studios trying to do that, and then being like, nah, don't worry about it. Just do what you do good now. It's like, just stay in your lane now. Stay in your damn lane.
I also, like, one of the things I'm thinking of is like, on the live service thing, like, y'all are eating really good third party wise. Y'all don't even need first party live service. Like, it's greedy at this point. Y'all are eating really good on first.
Yeah, that's what's kind of so funny. Is like, so many people, like, especially some devs, are like, the way Sony thinks of it, especially because Microsoft has their live services that they like get 100% of everything. Like a third party, they only get like 30% of everything. That it's like, I can imagine the idea was like, man, those games are making a lot of money. What if we could have at least one of these hit, and then we reap those benefits, and then it's like smooth sailing for everyone. It's like, I get the business aspect of it. They approached it wrong. They absolutely approached it wrong, but they course corrected quick before they went down the Anthem route, before they went down the Avengers route, before they went down the Suicide Squad route of like their studio selling the reputation, like a single player studio selling the reputation over like the game that came out, over a game not that they're not experts in doing, and was gonna be like badly received. Basically that. So yeah, literally, it's like that would have been Naughty Dog. That's clearly what was gonna happen. They had at least Naughty Dog got out of the train was heading into the fire. They were able to pull the train like out of it like right on time. you should have pulled out way earlier, figured that out sooner. But it's just clear, like, yes, a previous leadership left, and now we have that. So
yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, interesting stuff for like our both console manufacturers. Like, not all roses and petals for Sony. Let's just say that is like, especially them, is like they got to prove they have something for later this year, because it's like obviously they're not. Yeah,
I don't really think they need to do anything this year.
I mean, if they're saying that there's gonna be like a downward trajectory, is like, I assume that's gonna be like a time where they gotta prove to see if they don't have to like go too down a downslope, because then that's
they can have 2 off years and Microsoft still won't be able to not only catch up but like stop stepping on rakes.
Yeah,
you get what I mean?
Oh yes, Microsoft is just about stepping on those rakes all the time.
Yeah, so I was just like, you can take this year off if you want to. Final Fantasy, like, can carry you for most of this year, and then like you got the bootleg Concords for the empty calorie gamers out there, and then you know, like, everything else is fine, you know?
Yeah, I'm just so curious. I'm really curious to see like their state of play gives me hope, because it's like the state of their recent state of play was like more personable than, like, especially the last two. It became more personal starting from last September, and now this one. I was like, okay, maybe all of those games are not for everyone, but there's something here. Yeah, let's see if they show up with a showcase. I want to see like a. Also keep this in mind. This is the first year where they don't have Call of Duty as their like marketing beat. That's on Xbox now, so I'm super curious to see like how they handle that, because Call of Duty is still gonna come out in their system. They're just not gonna be put the DLC first on PlayStation. Like, here's Call of Duty whatever, play on PlayStation. Like, usually, like, you know how it is like that. That has like the lowest. They no longer have that. I want to
Concord basically.
Yeah, I want to see how they. I really want to see how they handle it. It's like, it is funny that they found that in Hogwarts Legacy last year. It's like they still had paired up with Modern Warfare, but Hogwarts was the big seller, and they were like there. They were like, a lot of people bought PS5s to play like Hogwarts, even though they could have played on PS4 later in the year, or played on Xbox if they wanted to. So, but yeah, interesting stuff. And then we haven't even heard from Nintendo. Nintendo was supposed to drop a Nintendo Direct today. That was the rumors about it.
The rumor was, yeah.
Yeah, so now the rumors that they delayed it to kind of like let the first news that some games were gonna go out, and that's gonna be the first place where we hear some of those like exclusive games that go out from Microsoft. So we'll definitely hear on that. So Sebastion, that's all in for the news. We had the releases for February 18 to to February 24 at the bottom. Do the honor to read the few that we got going.
What is this? Quamp 2?
Yeah, Quamp 2.
For everything. All the systems is coming out February 20th. Last Epoch is coming out for PC on February 21st. Terminator Dark Fate Defiance for PC coming out also on February 21st. Then you have
Inculinati.
What is this? You heard of this?
No idea. It looks like it's a strategy game by Daedalic Entertainment.
Okay, cool. It's coming out for everything on February 22nd. And then you got Pacific Drive for PC and PlayStation 5 on February 22nd. And last but not least, guess what date? February 22nd. Sons of the Forest for PC.
Yeah. This next week is just the 20th to the 22nd that is going to have some stuff. I'm interested in Pacific Drive.
There's no chance in hell you playing any of these games.
Yeah. I think I might play Pacific Drive. Paul wants it. Yeah, Paul wants it. So because of our arrangement, we might get it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I'm just surprised you're gonna have time based on all the things you're playing right now. Yeah. Like, you're still playing Tekken. You're playing.
Yeah, I'm done with Tekken. Paul is the one that's playing Tekken.
Okay.
So right now, like, my time is like being siphoned by Helldivers 2 whenever my clan is like live, and I just kind of want to like just lose a little bit of steam for at the end of the day. Then like a Suicide Squad, I'm just build crafting because I'm just nuts like that with that kind of game. Okay. But then in Skull and Bones, because I committed to that review, I want to see.
That's a lot of games, man.
Yeah. So, but Pacific Drive is supposed to be shorter, like a smaller game. I can imagine I could use a little bit of a counter programming as I wait for Final Fantasy. So, and since Paul wants it, this is like, I'm gonna comply and get it. So unless the reviews are so bad, I doubt it. Yeah. So are you gonna play any of these?
No, not a chance. I got a lot going on, so I'm like and then I'll still be playing like Yakuza Like a Dragon
Mm-hmm.
and some other things. But no, it's like not that any of these are bad games. It's just a busy time right now, you know.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and again, like I'm hoping for the best for Pacific Drive, but if
I
it's
am too.
yeah, if it's not so great, no, I won't shed a tear. I'm good right now until the 29th.
I was about to
So,
say you got 1 week window basically
yeah,
before you're gonna
Rebirth.
be rebirth.
Yeah, before I go reborn. and so, and I go down the Final Fantasy route again, like I did last year. So, Sebastion, where can people find you?
Man, y'all can find me in the Single Player Experience podcast, available on all your favorite podcast platforms. You can hit me up on Discord if you so happen to choose to do so and such like that. The link will probably be in the description of this episode. But yeah, and you can hit me up on Twitter, Sebastion23 or any of that. But I am taking like a social media break, so if you don't hear back from me, don't
Yeah.
be offended. It's me more. It's not you.
Yeah. Good thing I have you directly in direct message to
Yeah,
talk
for
to
sure.
you. Yeah, and then you can find me at A_Segovia on Twitter /X, Alejandro Segovia 93 on Instagram /threads, and my written content at both thecriticalcorner.com and seasongaming.com, where you can read my The Last of Us Part 2 Remaster review and my Grand Blue Fantasy Relink review. Hopefully you may see a review of me from Skull and Bones if I make it to the end. We'll see.
You're gonna
Yeah,
You're
it's
gonna
and then in the future Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and then everything's gonna be downhill for me after that. So because that's my most anticipated game of both this year and also review wise. So Sebastion, thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode. I always love like a rather long conversation we can always have about like gaming.
Yeah, for sure.
We love doing that. So let's see when I get you in again, since with Paul's new week in week out schedule. So usually like I have found some fun guests that have been able to rotate in and out.
Yeah,
So,
you've had some really good shows lately. Shout out to everything you've been doing, man. Keep killing it.
yeah, and you too. Like I can't wait to like go to your side of the pond so we can like do like an autopsy on Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. But until then, people, thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you like what you watch or listen, give us a like, subscribe, leave us a review or comment, and we'll see you next week. Play some games, enjoy the rest of this hopefully not so cold February, and
+6 to play.
hasta la vista, babies.
Peace.